హలో, నేను మిస్ రావు. తెలుగు రాష్ట్రాల్లో ఇవాళ ప్రపంచంతో పోటీ పడుతున్నారు సర్వీస్ సెక్టార్లు అంటే అది ఒక సివిల్ సర్వెంట్ చేసినటువంటి బీజం 90s లో చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు తోటి కలిసి ఒక విజన్ తయారు చేసి అప్పుడు ఐటీని ప్రమోట్ చేసినటువంటి రణదీప్ సుడాన్ గారు IAS ప్రస్తుతం మనతో ఉన్నారు. ఆయన వేసినటువంటి బీజం 25 సంవత్సరాల క్రితం ఇవాళ అనేక మందికి ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ అండ్ కమ్యూనికేషన్ టెక్నాలజీస్లో ఉద్యోగాలు కల్పించింది. అయితే ఇప్పుడు వరల్డ్ తోటి కాంపిటేట్ కాగలమా తెలుగు రాష్ట్రాలు కాంపిటేట్ అయ్యేటువంటి పరిస్థితులు ఉన్నాయా? అంతటి సామర్థ్యం ఉందా ఇప్పుడు ఉన్నటువంటి స్టూడెంట్స్కి అనే దాని మీద ఇంటరాక్ట్ అయ్యే ప్రయత్నం చేద్దాం. ప్రస్తుతం మన దగ్గర రణదీప్ సుడాన్ గారు ఉన్నారు. నమస్తే అండి.
నమస్కారం.
Sir, I'm very lucky to interact with you. After very long time, I see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah, మీరు 25 years బ్యాక్ మీరు చేసినటువంటి విజన్ తోటి చేసినటువంటి ఒక ప్రయత్నం ఇవాళ కొన్ని లక్షల మందికి జాబ్స్ వస్తున్నాయి. బట్ ఇప్పటికి కూడా డిజిటలైజేషన్ అనేది ఇంకా వేగంగా వెళ్తుందా సార్? ఇంకా స్పేస్ ఉందంటారా?
So definitely there is a lot of opportunity for digitalization because technology is accelerating and new technologies and new business models are emerging. And these afford an opportunity for states like Andhra Pradesh and countries like India to definitely take advantage of all these developments that are taking place. So for example, if we look at just one part of technology which is very hot these days, which is artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has the possibility of adding something like $15 trillion to the global economy.
Yeah.
So I was just mentioning that there is definitely an opportunity for states like Andhra Pradesh and countries like India to take advantage of the trends and the new technologies that are emerging in the digital space, especially if you look at technologies like artificial intelligence. Then there is also quantum computing on the horizon, which will again have dramatic and transformative impact. So definitely there is the opportunity to leverage and to take advantage of these technologies.
సార్, ఏపీలో ఐటీ అనే దాన్ని ఒక దాన్ని పెట్టేసి ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ టెక్నాలజీ అనే ఒక డిపార్ట్మెంట్ని పెట్టి మీరు దానికి ఒక రూపొందించారు. ఎప్పుడో 97లో. అప్పుడు ఉన్నటువంటి స్పేస్ ఇప్పుడు కూడా ఉందంటారా?
In fact, the space is more today because, of course, Andhra Pradesh was the first state in India to establish a department of IT. I think it was in 1998, if my memory goes right. And that was an interesting department because the acronym for that department was DOIT, Department of IT. So DOIT. And at that time, Andhra Pradesh was the first state to have such a department. And of course, subsequently, virtually every state has an IT outfit now. But at that time, the potential of using digital technologies was actually limited. A couple of reasons for that. So one reason was, for example, digital infrastructure. You know, the bandwidth availability was not as much as what it is today. Even if you look at foundational platforms like Aadhaar or UPI, they were not in existence at that time. And also, these technologies like generative AI had not yet emerged because these are technologies which will democratize and will decentralize a lot of things which were earlier in a very centralized manner. So I feel that the opportunity has expanded significantly since 1998. And one needs to be thinking forward and ahead in order to be able to capitalize on those opportunities.
సార్, అప్పుడు 2020 విజన్ మీరు దాన్ని చూశారు కదా. అప్పుడు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు కలిసి మీరు కూడా 2020 విజన్ని మీరు కూడా దాంట్లో పార్టిసిపేట్ చేశారు. అప్పుడు మీరు ఏదైతే ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేశారో ఆ దిశగా వెళ్తుందా టెక్నాలజీ? ఇప్పుడు డిజిటల్ టెక్నాలజీ కానీ లేదంటే బ్యాండ్ విడ్త్ కానీ ఇవన్నీ ఎట్ సైడ్ మొత్తం కూడా టెక్నాలజీ పరంగా?
Yes, certainly. So this Vision 2020 was the result of a visit which Mr. Naidu made to Malaysia in 1997. And he met the Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, who had the original actually Vision 2020 for Malaysia because he's an ophthalmologist. So Vision 2020 is perfect eyesight, right? So that was the concept which Malaysia had. So the chief minister felt that it was a very good idea to take that concept of thinking long term and try and see where Andhra Pradesh could benefit from that long term thinking. It is always better to think long term because you are then not constrained by your current constraints. You can think beyond them. Otherwise, you're too caught up in your constraints, and it is very difficult to be ambitious. But in the case of this Vision 2020, I think one of the central features of that document, which was prepared with the help of McKinsey and Company, was actually this move towards information technology. And in fact, that vision said that Andhra Pradesh will leverage information technology to attain a position of leadership and excellence in the information age. That was the ambition.
Yeah.
That ambition continues till today. And that Vision 2020 document was launched in, I think, 1999. So it was, 20 years ahead, and it was thinking 20 years out.
Yeah.
So that still continues, because even today, we are talking about the knowledge society, which it spoke in 1999, and we are talking about the information age. So it was very prescient and far-sighted, even for its time. So it is still relevant today.
ఇప్పుడు 2020 విజన్ లో ఎలాంటి మొత్తం టోటల్ కంటెంట్ ఉంది అనేది మీకు తెలుసు. ఇప్పుడు మళ్ళా 2029 అండ్ 2047 అంటున్నారు. సో ఆ డాక్యుమెంట్ కి ఎన్హాన్స్ అంటే ఇది నెక్స్ట్ స్టెప్ అనుకోవాలా?
Yes, so on that, I have a slightly different take on that. And I will explain to you why I have a slightly different take. So what happens is that you develop a strategy which is long-term. And that strategy is developed based on a process which is called strategic foresight. So normally, you look at what are the trends, you identify something called weak signals, which means those things are just starting. And if they get amplified into the future, then what would that future look like? And you try to shape that future with the help of your understanding of where things might go, because there is no one single endpoint which might happen in the future. There's a whole range of possibilities that might occur. So normally what happens is that if you design a vision today, you are designing it based on what is your knowledge today and what do you see is likely to happen tomorrow. But that tomorrow is constantly changing. So which means that vision has to be constantly updated, even though the end target may be 2047. So to give an example, when Singapore started its futuring exercises, it was doing it every 2 years. So they do a futures exercise. So the entire government in Singapore, they sit down and they think that what the future might look like, and they revise that every 2 years. Now, Singapore revises it every 3 months. So just imagine that when you have a target and you set a vision 2047, while you may start with that objective, but you will need to constantly revise it as you go along, maybe not every 3 months, at least every 6 months or a year, because technology is moving so fast. There are so many imponderables that are coming up, and there are so many geopolitical changes that are happening. There are so many things where climate change and these big developments are taking place. So you need to constantly be on a revision sort of path where you're taking into account everything and then constantly updating that strategy so that you take advantage of what's happening. That should be the approach.
సార్, వరల్డ్ బ్యాంక్ అలాగే ఏషియన్ డెవలప్మెంట్ బ్యాంక్ వీటన్నిటికి కూడా మీరు కన్సల్టెంట్ గా ఉన్నారు, మేనేజర్ గా కూడా పనిచేశారు. అక్కడ మీ జర్నీ మొత్తం కూడా అక్కడే ఉంది ఎక్కువగా. అంటే వరల్డ్ మొత్తం ఎలా ఉంది అనే దాని మీద మీకున్నటువంటి కమాండ్ చాలా ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది. సో అక్కడ వరల్డ్ తోటి కాంపిటీట్ అయ్యేటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్స్ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ లో కానీ లేదా తెలంగాణలో కానీ ఉందనుకుంటున్నారా?
So I think that definitely the potential is there, right? Because we have a young population and we have visionary leadership. Our leadership is well plugged into what's happening internationally. So the opportunity is there, and India is a major player in terms of the global economy. It is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So the potential is there, certainly. But I feel that one thing which is lacking is this ability to constantly be thinking about the future. There is no institutional structure which is focused just on the future. So, for example, in the case of Singapore, they have a Center for Strategic Futures, which is located in the Prime Minister's office. And every single officer in Singapore at the senior level is trained mandatorily. There's a mandatory training on future craft. So, which means the entire government is future focused constantly. Now, that sort of institutional construct or institutional mechanism is absent in in states like Andhra Pradesh or in every state in India, and even at the Government of India level. I think that ability to see that all civil servants are trained on the future, and there's a constant orientation and constant exercise to think about the future, look at opportunities, risks. That is something which needs to be done if Andhra Pradesh or India have to take a lead, because then you will be able to identify opportunities much better. So that is one area. Second area, I think, where we need to do really better is on education, because the education model has to change, and the skills will also become very different in the future as compared to what's happening today. Already, if you look at technology skills, the half-life of skills is about 2 years, which means if you learn whatever you learn today in the university, after 2 years, the value of what you have learned is half of what it is today, because technology is moving so fast. So which means that you have to look at certain enduring skills, number one. And number two, you have to be constantly on a path of learning, and that lifelong learning and using different approaches to do learning. So which means very personalized learning, using generative AI, getting everybody onto the generative AI bandwagon. I think these are things which need to happen and afford an opportunity to really leapfrog.
సో ఇప్పుడు ప్రజెంట్ ఉన్న ఎడ్యుకేషన్ సిస్టమ్ అనేది ఈ కాంపిటేటివ్ వరల్డ్ కి సరిపోతుంది అంటారా? అంటే యాక్చువల్గా ఇప్పుడు ఇంజనీరింగ్ కాలేజీలో అప్పుడు మీరున్నప్పుడు నంబర్ ఆఫ్ పెట్టారు విజన్ రీచ్ కావడానికి. బట్ ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి ఇంజనీరింగ్ కాలేజీలో ఉన్నటువంటి ఎడ్యుకేషన్ ఇట్ ఇస్ నాట్ అప్ టు మార్క్ అనేది ఉంది. సో దానికి ఎన్హాన్స్ చేయాలంటారా?
Yes, so the education system still continues to be largely legacy system, because if you look at what's happening in the universities, it is largely that classroom-based approach and trying to, have exams and degrees and things like that. I think the future will have to be more work-centric, more where the jobs and skills are going, and it needs to be very adaptable. It needs to be very quickly adaptable. And moreover, what would happen is that, say, if I'm a faculty in an engineering college, I might find it difficult to keep abreast of all that is happening outside, because technology is going so fast. Yeah. So my own skills are likely to get obsolete no matter how hard I try, because there are so many people working on so many exciting technologies and so much change is happening in the world. So you have to tap into companies and the expertise outside of the universities, and that has to be integrated as part of the education system. That integration needs to be done through what is called as work-based learning, which means that whatever you learn has to have application and real-life application in the external world. Now, that connection is largely missing in our education system, even though we have these co-op programs and we have internships and things like that. But nonetheless, that close connection between trying to solve real-life problems and being able to learn in the process from the very best, no matter where they are. They might be in the university, they may be outside. So there needs to be reorientation along those lines, number one. Number two, the educational technologies themselves are evolving. So for example, immersive learning is something which will become a much more efficient and better way of education. So that requires a technological approach to education, which currently is not there. It has still to happen, number two. Number three is that with generative AI, it will be possible to have very personalized education and be able to have just-in-time education. Now, if that is done, then the emphasis will shift from finding answers to actually the ability to ask the right questions. So very interestingly, there is hardly any university or any college, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, which has a course on the art of asking smart questions, because that is a fundamental ability that you will require going forward, because answers will be easy, because the entire knowledge of the world is captured by technology and can be presented to you.
Yeah.
But what questions to ask becomes more important.
Yeah.
And there is no course, no training, no formal education on that.
Yeah.
And similarly, as I mentioned, this connection with work, with real life problem solving, and with expertise outside of the universities, that model and architecture has to change.
Yeah. సార్ ఇప్పుడు ఉండేటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్స్ లో యాక్చువల్ గా మనకున్న రిసోర్స్ ఏంటి అనేది మీకు తెలుసు తెలుగు రాష్ట్రాల్లో, ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో కానీ తెలంగాణలో కానీ. మీరు యునైటెడ్ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ ఉన్నప్పుడు మీరు సివిల్ సర్వెంట్ ఉన్నారు కాబట్టి మీకు దీని మీద కమాండ్ ఉంటుంది. బట్ ఇక్కడ ఉండేటువంటి రిసోర్స్ బేస్ చేసుకుంటే కనుక మన టెక్నాలజీని ఎటువైపు తీసుకెళ్ళాలి? అగ్రికల్చర్ వైపు ఇప్పుడు ఉండే సిచ్యువేషన్లో తీసుకెళ్లాలా, లేదంటే ఇండస్ట్రీ వైపు తీసుకెళ్లాలా, లేదంటే ఇతర రంగాల వైపు తీసుకెళ్లాలంటారు?
So I think technology is a general purpose technology. So digital technology is a technology which has application in agriculture, in manufacturing, education, any sector. Now the issue is that what should you be doing on the technology side, which will have good impact on every sector so that you can develop better and faster. I feel that there are a couple of areas where the state could do really well. So one area is the area of digital twins. So which means that you digitize the physical, the analog, objects, processes, things, people, and you create digital equivalents of analog processes, objects, and things. Now, if you do that, that will allow you to use resources much better and will prepare you for the future much better, because things can be done much faster. So, for example, let's go to agriculture. Now, we all know that the use of drones, the use of precision agriculture is something which is common knowledge now. It's not as if it is something very advanced. But the next iteration which is happening is micro precision. That means plant-wise. Each plant is considered as a separate entity, and a digital twin of the entire farm is created, with each plant being represented digitally as a digital twin. And then you can optimize plant-wise. Now, that is the direction which agriculture will be moving. So unless we start using these technologies of digital twinning, which are becoming much cheaper, by the way, even your ordinary phone, like the iPhone, has a LiDAR camera on it. LiDAR is a good technology for doing these type of things at low cost. Yeah. So the ability to create digital twins of humans for healthcare, for example. So there's a lot of development taking place on how to create a digital twin for health. And there's a lot of research and a lot of cases are there which are very useful. Digital twinning in agriculture, digital twinning in manufacturing, even digital twinning in skilling, in logistics. Yeah. Every single area, there is an opportunity to create a digital equivalent of what is out there in the physical world. Now, just imagine that there is hardly any government in the world which has a program or a strategy on digital twins. Say if Andhra Pradesh was to go forward with a strategy on digital twins and say how it will facilitate and will promote and will ensure that we are able to create digital twins of space. So all cities, all villages, in agriculture, in manufacturing, in logistics. So that would, first of all, it would require that a lot of people are trained on digital technologies, because unless they are trained how to capture all this. Number two, it affords a lot of employment opportunities, because the very act of digitization creates employment. Number two. Number three, it allows you to leapfrog, because you're ahead of the game. You can use digital technologies much better. You have more data to play with. The more data you have, the better AI you can develop, and the more impactful is that artificial intelligence that you can use. So there's an opportunity even to set a precedent internationally for Andhra Pradesh by going into these directions. So I feel that there's clear opportunities in digital twinning, in artificial intelligence, in areas like generative AI as a foundational technology, training everybody in Gen AI, and ensure that the skilling part is done smartly with industry, with outside expertise, and in a flexible way.
సార్ టెక్నాలజీ వైదు ఇవన్నీ చెయ్యాలంటే కనుక ఫస్ట్ అయితే ఫైనాన్షియల్ అసిస్టెన్స్ అయితే ఉండాలి. ఆ ఫైనాన్షియల్ అసిస్టెన్స్ మనకి వరల్డ్ బ్యాంక్ నుంచి కానీ లేదంటే ఏడీబీ నుంచి కానీ ఉంటుందా? ఆ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఫెసిలిటీ ఉంటుందా?
No, of course. World Bank has a big facility for helping countries on technology. When I used to be there as the manager of the ICT sector unit, I was the single manager managing the global portfolio of the World
Great.
Bank, right? Now there are 7 managers which manage that portfolio. So what I used to do as a single manager, now there are 7 managers which are doing that, which means that the portfolio is growing, obviously, because that's why you need more people. The World Bank is also setting up a vice president on digital transformation. That was never there. It was under a different vice presidency. Now, digital technology, because it is so important and transformational, the new World Bank president, Mr. Ajay Banga, has set up a new vice presidency on digital transformation. So the World Bank's resources, which will go into digital, will increase. And to that extent, other organizations will also follow, like the Asian Development Bank. These other regional banks will also follow.
సరే, యాక్చువల్గా మనకి వరల్డ్ బ్యాంక్ అనగానే రూరల్ డెవలప్మెంట్ కోసం ఫండ్స్ని బాగా ఇస్తూ ఉంటుంది జనరల్గా మనకి జనరల్ ప్రాక్టీస్లో. ఇప్పుడు దానికన్నా కూడా ఎక్కువ ఇచ్చే అవకాశం ఉందా టెక్నాలజీకి?
No, definitely, because the cost of doing things is going down, actually. So I'll give you an example. Singapore created virtual Singapore. So they digitized the entire city of Singapore and created a virtual twin of Singapore. This was done with Dassault Systems, which is a French company. And it cost them something like nearly 90 million Singapore dollars, which is a lot of money, spending just to digitize a city. They spent that sort of money. But now what has happened is with drones, with these LiDAR phones, and with gaming platforms. So gaming platforms like Unreal Engine, you can actually digitize and create a digital equivalent of a city at a fraction of that cost. So there is a company, 51 World, which has developed a digital twin of Shanghai using drones and Unreal Engine. And that is into hundreds of thousands of dollars rather than millions of dollars, right? And as you go forward, the price is coming down further, because with generative AI, you capture one dimension, it can actually create 3 dimensions out of that one dimension, because of the use of AI. So which means that it will become much cheaper to do things. And to that extent, it will be much easier to embed these technologies across sectors, including agriculture and in rural areas, and will also be easier because Gen AI is moving to multimodal technology, which means it is not just text. It is text, it is audio, it is video, so it is images. So which means that tomorrow Gen AI will be able to talk to even a person who's illiterate, for that matter, right? And it becomes possible to engage with technology, and very sophisticated technology, very personalized technology for people of every sort of educational level. So it will become much easier to do this in rural areas, certainly.
మనకి ఎక్కువ రూరల్ ఏరియా ఉంటుంది. ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ తీసుకున్నా లేదంటే తెలంగాణ తీసుకున్నా, ఎస్పెషల్లీ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ తీసుకుంటే ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ కొంత వెనకబడింది అనేది తెలంగాణతో కంపేర్ చేస్తే, ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్లో ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ని 2024 నుంచి మనం ఏదైతే ఉంది ఏఐ అంటే అమరావతి అంటేనే ఏ అంటేనే ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ అంటున్నారు బాబు గారు. ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ హబ్గా మార్చాలి అంటున్నారు. హబ్గా మార్చడానికి కావాల్సినటువంటి ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ అవన్నీ కూడా అక్కడ సూటబుల్ అనిపిస్తుందా మీకు?
Yes, so I think now the situation is that as far as infrastructure is concerned, if you want to develop some original AI, right? If you want to do that, you need a lot of infrastructure, because you need data centers, you need GPUs, graphic processing units, which are very difficult to get because there's so much demand in the world, and they are becoming so expensive. So putting that infrastructure and getting all that together in one place may be a challenge initially. But because of the fact that digital technologies allow you to access the cloud, so no matter where that infrastructure is, so it might be in the US, but sitting in Amaravati, you should be able to access that and be able to do some very interesting stuff. So I feel that the distinguishing feature will be the ability to develop talent which is able to use this AI, which is able to bring innovation into AI, is able to leverage and bring some new product services using artificial intelligence. That will be a big opportunity. So that opportunity can certainly be capitalized from a place like Amravati with an AI first strategy, which Mr. Naidu has been talking about.
సార్ జనరల్గా వరల్డ్ బ్యాంక్ అనేది వరల్డ్ వైడ్ ఎక్కడెక్కడ బ్యాక్ ఏరియాస్ ఉన్నాయి, బ్యాక్ అంటే వెనకబడిన ప్రాంతాలు ఉన్నాయి, వాటిని ఐడెంటిఫై చేసి వాళ్ళకి కావాల్సినటువంటి వాటిని అన్నింటిని కూడా అరేంజ్ చేస్తుంది కదా. అలా ఐడెంటిఫై చేసిన ప్రాంతాల్లో ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ ఉందా?
So I'm not plugged into what is the latest on the World Bank side as far as their priorities are concerned. But their goals are very clear that we want to focus on a world without poverty by 2030. You know, you have these sustainable development goals. There are 17 goals, and poverty, hunger, education, jobs, all these are part of the SDGs, which the World Bank is certainly committed and focused upon. So wherever there is, a concentration of poverty, or wherever there's an opportunity for addressing things like food insecurity or clothing, shelter, definitely the World Bank will allocate more resources to those areas. And the World Bank also has different types of resources. There are certain resources which are lending resources, and there are certain resources which are grants. So generally, where there are poorer locations, it is more grant rather than loans, which are offered by the World Bank. So it has IBRD, the International Bank for Reconstruction Development, which offers loans, and it has IDA, the International Development Association, which offers grants. So India is a blend country, with IBRD and IDA funding also coming. So definitely, where there is a requirement and there's a gap, the World Bank will certainly step in.
పాలసీ వైజ్ ఇండియా పాలసీ టెక్నాలజీకి కొంత యూజర్ ఫ్రెండ్లీగా ఉందా? పాలసీ వైజ్ చూసుకుంటే రిమైనింగ్ కంట్రీస్తో కంపేర్ చేసుకుంటే.
So on this, the regulation of technology is a evolving topic. Nobody has got it perfectly. So for example, the European Union is generally ahead of the others on regulation of digital technologies. So for example, on privacy, they brought out the GDPR, the data privacy regulation, which is a European regulation. Similarly, on AI, they are the first group to bring out regulation of artificial intelligence. Now, US also is trying to regulate AI. For example, there's a bill in California, which is a little controversial, but they are trying to see how to see that, the dangers of AI can at least be managed thoughtfully.
Yeah.
So regulation is constantly evolving, and India needs to be doing that as well, because these are new technologies. So you have to strike a balance. So the balance has to be that you don't want to stifle innovation, but you also want to control in a way that it doesn't cause harm and societal harm. And especially with these technologies like AI, they could cause harm on a scale which is difficult to imagine as well. So one has to be careful. Then the other problem is that regulation always follows technology. Technology moves faster, regulation goes slower. So how to do that? So people have established sandboxes and trying to do that. So India has a lot of opportunity to constantly be developing regulation, but it has to be friendly so that innovation is not stifled and we do not lag behind countries which are more liberal in terms of their regulation.
బాబు గారు కొన్ని ప్రజెంటేషన్స్ కూడా ఇచ్చారు ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోడీ గారికి. సో బాబు గారు ఏమన్నారంటే, ఎన్నికల ముందు ఏం చెప్పారంటే, వర్క్ స్టేషన్స్ పెడతాను, వర్క్ స్టేషన్స్ పెట్టడంతో పాటు ఏపీ మొత్తం కూడా ఫ్రీ వైఫై ఇచ్చేసి టెక్నాలజీలో ముందుంచుతాను ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ని అని అన్నారు. వర్క్ స్టేషన్స్ పెట్టినందువల్ల వరల్డ్ తోటి మొత్తం వర్చువల్గా కనెక్ట్ అవ్వచ్చు అంటున్నారు. ఈజ్ ఇట్ పాసిబుల్?
No, so already the internet allows the world to be connected, right? So I think the idea there is to see that everybody has access to being able to use, for example, e-commerce, right? Because there will be a lot of opportunities of trade, especially across borders. So I think the idea there, and I'm not so plugged in, so please, my apologies for that, but I think the idea seems to be to be able to democratize, to be able to offer these resources so that everybody can participate in the opportunities of e-commerce and selling their products, services internationally and across borders, which seems to be a good idea because to that extent, even poorer people can have access to, those opportunities.
సో వన్ మోర్ అట్రాక్టివ్ అనౌన్స్మెంట్ చేశారు సార్ బాబు గారు ఎలక్షన్ ముందు. ఎవ్వరూ కూడా ఇంట్లో నుంచి వెళ్ళవసరం లేదు, ఇంట్లోనే ఉండి జాబ్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. సో ఏ కంపెనీకి వెళ్ళవచ్చు, ఏ నగరానికి వెళ్ళవసరం లేదు, ఏ దేశానికి వెళ్ళవసరం లేదు. ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో ఉండి ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో విలేజ్లోనే ఉండి పని చేసుకోవచ్చు రాబోయే రోజుల్లో. అలా చేస్తాను అని చెప్పారు. ఈజ్ ఇట్ పాసిబుల్?
Yes, so there is a definite move towards, remote or virtual jobs. For example, there is this company Shopify, which is one of the biggest platforms on e-commerce. They have completely gone virtual. They don't have an office, a fixed office for all their employees. Of course, they have some hubs where they bring employees for, brainstorming and for training and all that. But work is all remote. It's all distributed. I think that is going to only accelerate because it will be possible to work in those type of environments much easier. Plus, what is likely to happen is that these immersive technologies are likely to develop as time goes by, which means that you can be, virtual anywhere in a village, but you can be present at the same time in a digital sense with your colleagues and with the team, in a digital space. So that also will become possible. So I feel that it is good to start planning on a remote model because it will allow jobs to go right to the villages and to people who cannot travel and who may not get the visa for that and all the restrictions of which are there internationally, and take advantage of opportunities globally. Companies are in the race to find the best talent, and that best talent is distributed globally. So the only model where you can access the best talent is a remote model. So I feel that this is a smart strategy to see that jobs are completely decentralized and we address, remote jobs, which might allow us to participate in the global economy.
స్కిల్ ఆడిట్ అని చెప్పి ఒకటి స్టార్ట్ చేశారు సార్ ఏపీలో. స్టూడెంట్స్ వాళ్ళ యొక్క స్కిల్ ఎలా ఉంది ఏంటి దాని మీద ఒక ఆడిట్ చేస్తున్నారు. అది ఈ టెక్నాలజీ వైపు మలచడానికా లేదంటే అన్ని రంగాల వైపు వీళ్ళు స్ప్రెడ్ చేయడానికా యూత్ని? ఉందా స్కిల్ ఆడిట్ అనేది వరల్డ్ వైడ్ ఉందా ఆ ప్రాసెస్?
Yes, so this is a very interesting area and there is a lot of work going on in this area. So what's happening is that you capture the skills and you put them on a blockchain, and there are companies like Credible, for example, which do that. There is also, something called the Learning and Employment Records, LER standards, which are under development. Even IEEE is developing some standards in that area. Now, what I feel Andhra Pradesh should be doing is not only capture skills, but also capture work experience. Because unless you combine skills and work experience, you cannot really get an idea about what that individual is capable of doing. So just imagine there's somebody who's very skilled on Gen AI and has done self-learning and can solve very complex things using that technology. Now, he may not have a qualification, but he may be better than somebody who has a degree or a qualification or a micro credential on that. So unless you capture learning and employment or skills which are work-related skills into one unified record, number one, and you are able to create a talent inventory for the state, that is very powerful because what happens is that investments will be driven by availability of talent. So if you can tell a company that you give us your requirement, what talent you need, and I will match you with my talent in my state. And if I don't have talent in my state, I will see if there is adjacent talent available. And I will train in 1 month and I will bring them up to speed for your requirement. Or even if my state doesn't have that talent, I will connect with talent clouds internationally and I will give you whatever talent you require. That is a very compelling proposition for investors. So creating a talent pool or a talent inventory is a very smart idea once again.
మీరు అప్పుడు 90s లోనే జవహర్ నాలెడ్జ్ సెంటర్ అని పెట్టి ఇంగ్లీష్ కొంచెం సాఫ్ట్ స్కిల్స్ నేర్పించేటువంటి ప్రయత్నం ఆ సెంటర్స్ కూడా పెట్టారు మీరు. సో ఇప్పుడు ఇంగ్లీష్ మీడియం మొత్తం బిగినింగ్ నుంచి అంటే ఎల్కేజీ నుంచి ఇంగ్లీష్ మీడియం ఉంటేనే మన వరల్డ్ తోటి కాంపిటేట్ కావచ్చు అనే వాదనకి ఏమంటారు సార్?
Yes, so soft skills are going to be very important going forward. In fact, there is the World Economic Forum. It comes out with its annual Future of Jobs report. So the latest Future of Jobs report is 2023. And the most important skills actually are these soft skills, communication skills. So what needs to be done is that it is not just training in language. That is just one part of it. How do you work in a team? How do you work with teams which are international? How do you communicate? How do you listen? How do you ask questions? How do you relate with other people? Those skills are going to become very important going forward. And they are enduring skills. No matter what happened to technology or what happens to business models, those soft skills, which are these type of skills, will be important throughout. So I think there should be more emphasis on looking at soft skills also in a different way, that you should be able to not only work in teams and be able to communicate well and effectively and listen well, because communication is actually more about listening than about speaking. How well you listen and how well you are able to articulate ideas and rephrase them and all that. So plus, how do you work in international teams? That opportunity, if Andhra Pradesh is able to create, it will be ahead of the curve any day.
కమింగ్ 5 years లో అంటే 2029కి 20 lakhs జాబ్స్ ఇస్తానని చెప్పి ప్రామిస్ చేశారు ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి గవర్నమెంట్. చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు అలాగే లోకేష్ గారు ఇద్దరు ప్రామిస్ చేశారు. అది రీచ్ కాగలరా? రీచ్ అయ్యేటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్స్ కనిపిస్తున్నాయి మీకు ఏపీలో?
Jobs in government or general jobs creation?
General jobs. 20 lakhs jobs is not possible in government.
Exactly. Unless you do fractional jobs, which
Yeah.
makes it possible
Yeah.
that you give people a lot of fractional jobs.
Yeah.
But I think if the number of jobs will depend on doing a couple of things. One is that you have to be data driven, right? So which means that you should be able to create jobs where there is demand. So does the state have something in terms of estimating where the demand is? First thing. Now, to calculate demand, for example, you need to look at what are the job postings, analyze them internationally, and identify skills from those job postings, then be able to create a skills inventory and be able to see where those skills are going and what you should be preparing for. First thing. Number two, you have to understand where technology is going, because when you train people today, you are training them for jobs of tomorrow. Tomorrow is defined by technology. So which means that you must have an understanding which technologies are accelerating at what rate and what is the employment intensity of those technologies. And to that extent, then you can create a scenario where you say that this is likely to be, the demand for skills going forward, and I will start creating those skills and those opportunities to address that demand, which is emergent demand. If you do that systematically, then of course it may be possible to say that, okay, I will create so many jobs because I see this is the demand and I will prepare my workforce for meeting that demand.
సో వరల్డ్ వైడ్ సార్ ఐటీ సెక్టార్ అనేది రీషన్ లో ఉంది. ఈవెన్ యూరోప్ కంట్రీస్ లో కూడా రీషన్ ఉంది. బట్ ఐటీ సెక్టార్ కి ఫ్యూచర్ ఉండదు రాబోయేటువంటి రోజుల్లో. కాబట్టి మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ సెక్టారు లేదా ఇతర సెక్టార్స్ కి మళ్ళీ వెళ్ళండి అని చెప్పి చెప్తున్నారు. సో ఐటీ సెక్టార్ డిజాస్టర్ లోకి వెళ్ళే ఛాన్సెస్ ఉన్నాయా?
No, what's happening is that with artificial intelligence, a lot of the jobs in IT will be impacted. For example, programming or software development. Now, already there is a site in the US called layoffs.fyi or something. That's the name of the site. And if you look at that site, it was showing, I looked at it about a week ago, and it was showing something like 130,000 plus technical people who have been laid off in the US, right? In this year, in 2024, just imagine, we are not yet through with 2024. So what is likely to happen is that with the development of these large language models and with the development of multimodal models, there will be definitely a churn in the labor market, and there are certain jobs in the IT sector which will become irrelevant because the technology will overtake those jobs. Now, when that is happening, of course, if we can see that we are creating jobs in other sectors like manufacturing is one area, even manufacturing will be impacted big time because of technology. So I will give another example. If you look at Unitree, which is a Chinese company into robotics, so their Robo G1 is costing $16,000, $16,000. Now, this robo is able to do so many things which a human can do and is a humanoid. It's a replica for a human. Now, just imagine that with this type of technology being developed and with the price point coming down, there will be an impact on blue collar workers. So just imagine if humanoids start replacing humans in manufacturing, and if robotics starts going big time into that area, then jobs will be also lost on the blue collar side. In manufacturing, jobs will likely be lost. Similarly, in service area, there's a firm called Klarna, which is a Swedish fintech firm, and it replaced 700 customer facing agents with one AI. And the performance of that AI is better than what their agents were delivering. So if you look at services, the call center industry, for example, will be impacted big time by Gen AI, big time. If you look at finance, if you look at manufacturing, will be impacted by robotics. If you look at white collar jobs, including consulting jobs, they will be impacted by Gen AI. So I feel that there will be a lot of churn coming forward, and unless you are smart in being able to anticipate where things are going and constantly be changing your strategy and adapting to the future, you will not be able to really be on top of where the jobs are and what you should be doing. So all the more reason that you must have an organization in the government which is future focused, whose only job is this: look at where these things are going and do it systematically, and be able to then change strategy very well.
సో మీరు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారి దగ్గర అప్పట్లో 90s లో 98లో మీరైతే సెక్రటరీగా, అప్పుడు అడిషనల్ సెక్రటరీగా ఉన్నారు ఐటీకి. ఆ తర్వాత సీఎంగా ఆయన ఉన్నప్పుడు మీరు స్పెషల్ సెక్రటరీ సీఎం ఆఫీస్లో కూడా చేశారు. అప్పుడైతే సీఎం విజన్ ఎలా ఉందో ఆ విజన్ వేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళిపోయారు. ఇప్పుడేమో దాని ఫలాలన్నీ అందుతున్నాయి తెలుగు రాష్ట్రాలకు, దాంట్లో డౌట్ లేదు. కొన్ని లక్షల మంది జాబ్స్ ఉన్నాయి. కానీ ఇప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ రాబోయేటువంటి రోజుల్లో విజన్ 2029 2047 రీచ్ కావాలంటే టఫ్ అనిపించట్లేదా ప్రీవియస్ దానికన్నా కూడా?
No, I think that this impact on the job market by these technologies which are just emerging, I personally feel that it will be seismic impact. It will be impact which is very serious, actually, much more serious than what we have seen in the past. And to be able to prepare for that emerging world would require completely different strategies and will make the job much more difficult, because the world is becoming so much more complex and the technologies are accelerating at a faster clip, which means that your ability to respond very quickly and be able to anticipate change is likely to be impacted. So whatever you are setting your target, the future is so uncertain that you will have to constantly struggle to just keep pace with what's happening around you. And that is a challenge which not many governments are seriously addressing.
సో ఇప్పుడు ఉన్నటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్లో చాలా టఫ్ ఉంది. మీరే చెప్తున్నారు, వరల్డ్ చాలా సిచ్యువేషన్ అంతా టఫ్ ఉంది. ఇలాంటి సిచ్యువేషన్ నుంచి ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ని బయటపడాలి, లేదంటే చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు ఏదైతే అనుకున్నారో దాని విజన్ చేరాలంటే మీలాంటి వాళ్ళ అవసరం ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్కి ఉంది అని అంటే మరి మీరు రెడీయేనా?
No, I'm absolutely, anytime I'm happy to give advice. And, I always feel very proud of being associated with Mr. Naidu and with all the vision that, he brought into perspective, and with all the great work which was done in Andhra Pradesh. And definitely, one would love to contribute ideas and innovation, absolutely.
అంటే మీరు వేరే కంట్రీ నుంచి మీరు ఐడియాస్ షేర్ చేసుకోవడం కన్నా కూడా డైరెక్ట్గా ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్కి వచ్చి చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారితో ఉంటారేమో అని అందరూ వెయిట్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఏమంటారు?
No, actually, the situation is that I left the World Bank early. The World Bank retirement age is 67. So I took early retirement. And I wanted to do something which uses technology and have impact on a global scale. So I established a company in Singapore called Multiverse. And what we are trying to do is that we see that jobs and skills are going to be impacted big time in the future. We also see this future proofing and future readiness of governments and companies and individuals is an important area. So that is the area in which I'm working. So we are developing platforms and technologies which will address that. And that could likely impact on a global scale. And certainly, we would love to associate with Andhra Pradesh. And that's the area where currently I'm focused. So to
అది
physically locate in Andhra Pradesh may be tough. Yeah.
yeah. మీకోసం అయితే 2014లో స్టేట్ బైఫర్కేట్ అయిన తర్వాత మిమ్మల్ని తీసుకురావాలి అనేటువంటి ప్రయత్నాలు చాలా సీరియస్గా చేసినప్పటికి కూడా మీరు రాలేదంటున్నారు, నిజమేనా?
No, actually, my situation is that I'm so much invested in my company at the moment and what I'm doing. It becomes difficult, to relocate and then focus just exclusively on Andhra Pradesh. But certainly anything I can do because I owe all my success to that state. I would love to do that.
కానీ సార్, మీరు చెప్పినటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్ నుంచి ఏపీని ముందుకు తీసుకెళ్లాలంటే ఇప్పుడున్నటువంటి సివిల్ సర్వెంట్ల యొక్క కమిట్మెంట్ ఎలా ఉందని మీరు చూస్తున్నారు కదా, అది పాసిబుల్ అవుతుందా వాళ్ళ
No,
కమిట్మెంట్ చూసిన
definitely,
తర్వాత?
definitely, I think the capability of civil service is not a problem. See, I was looking at some data about how many students appear for civil service examination. So last civil service, I was told, I may be off the mark, that about 13 lakh students took the exam or candidates took the exam, and some 1,200 people got finally selected. So just imagine what would be the caliber of those 1,200 guys who are getting selected out of a universe of 13 lakh people and through a tough competitive exam.
Yeah.
So the fact that, they are very well plugged into what is the latest happening, they are very well educated, intelligent. So that capability is not a problem. I feel the problem is of having leadership which can direct them in a direction which is forward looking. Just like Singapore is doing, have everybody on future craft, for example, be able to give some freedom to innovate, to see that new things are done. There are some counterintuitive ideas that are tried out. So that depends on the leadership entirely. So if there's an enlightened leadership, that same civil service with some reorganization can deliver.
రీసెంట్ గా జరిగినటువంటి యూపీపీఎస్ లో జరిగినటువంటి ప్రాక్టీసెస్ ఉన్నాయి కదా, కొన్ని ప్రాక్టీసెస్ స్మాల్ ప్రాక్టీసెస్ లాగా అనిపించినాయి కదా. అప్పుడు ఇప్పుడు ఎవరైతే కొంతమంది ఐఏఎస్లు, అందరూ కాదు, కొంతమంది ఐఏఎస్లు కానీ ఐపీఎస్లు కానీ బిహేవ్ చేస్తున్నారు, అవి చూసిన తర్వాత వీళ్ళు అసలు ఎగ్జాక్ట్ గా ప్రిపేర్ అయ్యి ఎగ్జామ్ రాశారా, లేదంటే యూపీపీఎస్ లో మాల్ ప్రాక్టీస్ ఆల్రెడీ చూస్తున్నాం కాబట్టి ఆ టైప్ లో వచ్చారా అనేటువంటి అనుమానం రావట్లేదా?
So I'm not familiar with that, so I rather not, give my opinion on this. Thank you.
యాక్చువల్గా ఏపీలో చూస్తే సార్, ఐఏఎస్లు ఐపీఎస్ల సిచ్యువేషన్ చూస్తారు. మీరేమో అప్పుడు 90s లో ఎలా భవిష్యత్ తరాలకి బంగారు బాట వేయాలి, ఎలా సమాజ హితం కోసం పనిచేయాలి అనేటువంటి కమిట్మెంట్ తోటి ఉన్నారు. మీరు చేశారు. ఇవాళ అందరూ హ్యాపీగా ఎంజాయ్ చేస్తున్నారు. ప్రతి గ్రామంలో, ప్రతి ఇంట్లో యూరోప్ కంట్రీస్కో ఏదో కంట్రీకి వెళ్ళి వరల్డ్ వైడ్ స్థిరపడిన వాళ్ళు ఉన్నారు. బట్ ఇప్పుడు అలాంటి కమిట్మెంట్ ఉన్నటువంటి వాళ్ళు చాలా తక్కువ ఉన్నారు కదా, వాళ్ళని ఎలా మార్చాలి అసలు?
No, I think, to be honest, it is leadership that inspires. So I will give you my own personal example. I joined the Chief Minister's office in 1995, October. I joined on October 19th. He became Chief Minister on 1st September of 1995. So what happened is that when I joined his office, first of all, in the government, you are used to working 10 to 5, right? Your office starts at 10 o'clock, you go up to 5 o'clock. He starts his day at 6 a.m. in the morning, first thing. And he works all 7 days. There is no holiday out there, no Saturday, Sunday, no Diwali, nothing, no holiday. Now just imagine that, in fact, we used to joke in the Chief Minister's office that the government time is 10 to 5. Our time in the Chief Minister's office is 5 to 10, because we have to start home at 5 o'clock and then be there. So first thing. Second thing is that we always used to, when I started, I also had that problem that you are too much concerned with your constraints. So say, I'll give you an example. Chief Minister, I had a discussion with him in Davos about e-procurement, on one of those things. He said, Sudan, let's go back and let's try e-procurement. Now, as a civil servant, people say, sir, how can you do e-procurement when companies don't have internet, right? Even government offices don't have internet in many cases. How will you implement e-procurement in this state? This is a wild idea, right?
Yeah.
He said, no, 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 let's not do like that. We will start e-procurement for APSRTC and for medical procurement. All those are big companies, they have the internet, and you need to have internet only in a small number of government offices, and you can start e-procurement. That e-procurement application won the United Nations Award internationally.
Oh.
So just imagine that you are not constrained, there's a creative way of doing things. And as a civil servant, one tends to be too constrained. So one thing I learned from him was never to be constrained in your thinking, always be very ambitious and blue sky in your thinking, which is a great inspiration.
సార్ మీరు సివిల్ సర్వెంట్స్ గా మీరు ఇచ్చే వాళ్ళ ఐడియాస్ ఆయనే మీకు ఐడియాస్ ఇచ్చేవాళ్ళ చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు
No, no,
గారు?
it's a dynamic, right? But he is the one who gives you the space. He's the one who sort of pushes you to do something even more ambitious than you thought of. So that is the hallmark of leadership, right? So that is what I really always remember with great gratitude and pride about my association with those things.
సార్ అప్పట్లో ఐటీ కంపెనీలు తీసుకురావడానికి ఇన్ఫోసిస్ లాంటి వాటిని తీసుకురావడానికి చాలా టఫ్ అయ్యిందని అంటారు. చాలా టఫ్ ఆ రోజున చంద్రబాబు గారు ఇవన్నిటిని తీసుకురావడానికి చాలా కష్టపడ్డారని అంటారు. అప్పుడు ఉన్న ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ ఏంటి సార్? వాళ్ళు రానన్నారా ఆ కంపెనీల వాళ్ళు? ఏంటి అసలు?
So I will give you some clear examples on this. So we were trying to get GE Capital to Hyderabad. So we went to the boss of GE Capital in India, Raman Roy was the boss. And we requested him, why don't you look at Hyderabad and why don't you set up something here? He said, Sudan, Hyderabad is not in our reckoning. So I asked him, why are you thinking of not considering Hyderabad? He says the Telugu accent will not be understood by the Yanks, as he put it, by the Americans, because Telugus have a heavy accent according to him at that time, Raman Roy. Now, we tried hard, we couldn't get Raman Roy. In September 1998, the chief minister made a trip to the US. So he spent 2 weeks in the US. So during that trip, we had lunch at in Manhattan at some pen club, and we took a helicopter and we went to Connecticut, Fairfield, the G headquarters at that time. We met Jack Welch. So I was there, the chief minister there, and Jack Welch was there. So the chief minister was very, very honest with that, the CEO. He said that, look, my state is having all these constraints. Power is a constraint. This is a constraint. That's a constraint. But sir, here is my vision for Andhra Pradesh. This is what I want to do. We came, that meeting was about half an hour meeting, and then we came off. I met Raman Roy in 2003 when he was returning from Mauritius. I was also on the same flight. So Raman Roy has told me, he said, after your boss met Jack Welch, he called me and he said, Roy, you have to go to Hyderabad because I am so convinced with Mr. Naidu's vision. He's a man with a vision and he's honest about all his constraints. He's laying them flat on the table, right? That this is my problem at the moment, but I want you to be part of my vision that I'm trying to, go towards. So GE came to Hyderabad and we arranged for them accent neutral, people training. And they realized that, oh, wow, these Telugu speak very good English. No problem. That accent is not an issue at all. Then there was a problem of giving some, they wanted free land, for example. How do you give free land to a company like GE? It's very, very difficult. But then we thought about it that they can create so much employment. Why don't we give an employment subsidy and which will compensate for the cost of land? And that can be given to every company which is coming. It is with that systematic approach that ultimately GE started its campus in Hyderabad. So you see how much effort it took. Yeah. You had to go to the US, you had to meet Jack Welch, you had to convince him, you had to get that team to Andhra Pradesh, you had to get your education system, aligned so that you can show them that these students are, accent neutral. Then you have to organize land, you have to organize a policy to just get one company to locate in Hyderabad. That happened with virtually every major investment that took place in Hyderabad. So it's not easy, I will give you another very interesting example, which is also very illustrative. The chief minister met Mr. Dhirubhai Ambani in Bombay while going to Davos on one of those things. And he told him that you should get into this digital technologies because that's the future. So long story short, the Reliance group got into telecom and they started putting broadband in Andhra Pradesh. For broadband, they require right-of-way permission. And they said, sir, can you give us this right-of-way permission faster? So we issued a GO which said that if you apply for right-of-way permission, we will give it to you in 30 days. So within 1 month, you will get right-of-way permission. When they started implementing, actually, they were not able to get it in 30 days because some municipal commissioner will sit over that, some police guy will sit over it, some R&B guy will sit over that. So 30 days was not happening. And that Madhav from Reliance was coming to me saying, sir, you have given that GO, we are not able to execute because of so much problem. So CM was going to Jamnagar and Dhirubhai was supposed to raise this question with CM. So I told CM that, sir, tomorrow Dhirubhai is going to ask this question that though the GO is there, we are not able to do work. He said, Sudan, do one thing, you issue another GO, which is that if you apply for right-of-way permission and it is not granted in 15 days, it is deemed to be given. You can go ahead with that. So there's a deemed clause. So that is how the fastest rollout of broadband happened in Andhra Pradesh because of this flexibility and innovative policy that he introduced.
Yeah. ఇవన్నీ కూడా చాలా టఫ్. అంటే ఆయన పర్సనల్ గా తీసుకొని మీలాంటి వాళ్ళు ఆ రోజున సివిల్ సర్వెంట్ ఉండబట్టి మొత్తం అచీవ్ చేశారు. కానీ దాన్ని కొంతమంది ఏమంటున్నారంటే ఒక సామాజిక వర్గం కోసం ఆయన చేశారు అనేటువంటి ఆరోపణలు ఇప్పటికి కూడా ఆయన వెంటాడుతున్నాయి బాబు గారిని. హైదరాబాదు ఇవాళ హైదరాబాదు ఇలా ఉంది అని అంటే అది మీరు చెప్తున్న దాని ప్రకారం ఆయన పడినటువంటి కష్టము, ఆయన ఆ రోజున ఉన్న విజన్ దాంతోటి. కానీ మరొక యాంగిల్ ఏంటంటే ఇప్పటికి కూడా చాలా మంది ఒక సామాజిక వర్గానికి అక్కడ దోచిపెట్టడానికి హైదరాబాద్లో భూములన్నింటినీ ఫ్రీగా ఇచ్చేశారు కంపెనీలకి అని చెప్పే వాళ్ళకి ఏం చెప్తారు?
No, the situation is that unless you bring technology companies and have those investments in your state, you cannot get to the next level. So just imagine how China has developed. China gave free land to companies which were coming in, and that's how it's become a manufacturing powerhouse in the world today, right?
Yeah.
You see how rapidly they developed because of these special economic zones and giving land and giving incentives and really attracting these companies to locate in China, Now, similarly, if you have to compete with other countries and get those investments, how do you compete? Because you are not the only option for them. You're not the only game in town for them. They can go somewhere else as well. So to be able to attract them, you have to do something which is competitive. And once you attract them, then it affords an opportunity for you to understand how these companies work, what is their priority, where is the market, what are the opportunities, what skills do they require, what is the global market that these companies are catering to, and what are those requirements. It gives you a perspective which otherwise is not possible. Number one. Number two, it also develops the local economy and it has spin-off effects, right? So every job created in IT, ITS creates ancillary jobs down the line. So it's not as if it is just confined to just the upper crust. It has some downstream effects as well.
Yeah. సార్ ఇంకోటి ఏంటంటే క్లింటన్ ని తీసుకురావడం వల్ల ఏంటి బెనిఫిట్ ఏంటి అని అడిగే వాళ్ళు కూడా ఉన్నారు. ఆ రోజున క్లింటన్ తీసుకురావడానికి ఎంత కష్టపడ్డారు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు మీకు తెలుసు. సో క్లింటన్ ఇక్కడికి రావడానికి, ఇక్కడికి వచ్చిన తర్వాత సిచ్యువేషన్ ఏంటి అనే దాని మీద ఏం చెప్తారు సార్?
So the situation is that when you are trying to get international investment into your state, you need to capture the mind share globally, right? How do you capture that mind share? How do you ensure that a CEO of, say, Cisco will look at, Andhra Pradesh, of all the locations in the world?
Yeah.
Now, what happened is that when the chief minister managed to get Mr. Bill Clinton to visit Hyderabad in 2000, I think, 2000, when they inaugurated high-tech city, so the entire world's press was on that. So just imagine if you had to put an ad in New York Times, or if you had to put an ad on the Washington Post or something, how much it costs. Whereas this is free, right? It is giving publicity that the president of the US is in Hyderabad. There are photographs. There is high-tech city. There is a write-up on, cyber towers, and Microsoft Office got started because following that visit. Srini Kapulu, who used to be there, brilliant guy, he was located in Hyderabad, and then that Microsoft story started. So all that was the effect of that getting Clinton, the president, to Hyderabad. So I thought it was in fact a master stroke to get him there.
Yeah. సో మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ తీసుకురావడం వెనక కూడా చాలా ఆయన చాలా ఎఫర్ట్స్ పెట్టారని అంటారు. ఆయన పర్సనల్ ఎఫర్ట్స్ పెట్టారా మైక్రోసాఫ్ట్ విషయంలో?
Absolutely. So what happened is that Bill Gates came to India in March of 1997. That was his first visit to India. And when he came to India, Mr. J. Chaudhary used to be the director of the software technology park. So he spoke to me. He said, Sudan, this Bill Gates is coming to India. Why don't you ask CM to invite him to Hyderabad? Okay. So I went to CM. I said, sir, Mr. Chaudhary has mentioned this. Why don't we invite Bill Gates to Hyderabad? So CM said, absolutely, let's send an invite. So Rajiv Kaul was the boss of Microsoft in India. So he went to Rajiv Kaul. I called him up and I said, we want Mr. Gates to visit Hyderabad, and Chief Minister is very keen to host him here. He said, Sudan, no way it will happen, because his plan is already decided. He will come to Delhi and that's it. He's not coming to Hyderabad. We cannot change it at this stage. I told the CM, sir, that is what the feedback is. So CM said, I'm willing to go to Delhi to meet him. Okay. So I went back to Rajiv Kaul and I said that the CM is willing to come to Delhi. Can you arrange a meeting in Delhi for our Chief Minister with Mr. Gates? So he said that it seems difficult, but he will try. So after about a week, he came back. He said, I tried with Redmond, Microsoft headquarters, and they say that it is not possible to have a one-on-one meeting, but there will be a reception for Bill Gates in the US ambassador's residence. And we can invite the chief minister to be part of that reception, and he can meet with Bill Gates in that reception. So I said, how many people are you inviting for that reception? He said, very few, only about 100 people. I said, how will the chief minister talk to Bill Gates, within this melee of 100 people? Yes. We want one-on-one. He said, Randeep, this is the best I can do. I cannot do any further than this. Then what happened is that Frank Wisner came to Hyderabad, the US ambassador at that time. So I told the chief minister, I said, sir, why don't we ask him? Because the reception is at his place, right? So chief minister asked him that I would like to meet Gates, and can you arrange something? He said, no problem. I'll arrange one-on-one, not an issue. I'll talk to Gates and you will have your one-on-one meeting. How much time do you need? 20 minutes? Will that be enough? Enough. Okay. So we flew to Delhi and we met Bill Gates one-on-one in the residence of the US ambassador, Frank Wisner. There, the laptop which we took and showed the PowerPoint presentation to Bill Gates was the exact laptop which was in his book, The Road Ahead. He had written a book at that time, The Road Ahead, and there was a laptop which was shown there. That exact same model, and that full book we read, and we knew what his thinking was, and we made a presentation which Chief Minister made to him in the residence of Frank Wisner. We asked three things. One, we asked, we want Microsoft to set up operations in Hyderabad. Number two, we wanted them to get involved in triple IT. We wanted Microsoft. And number three was, we wanted Microsoft products at a lower rate than what they were selling us. These are the three asks. Bill Gates did not react there. He just listened, and there was no reaction. But he went back and he sent a team from Microsoft to Hyderabad. Oh. That team led by a guy called Sanjay Parthasarathi. So Sanjay Parthasarathi came. He was a senior guy in Microsoft. So I showed him around. He said, can you show me a building where we can locate our team? World-class building. We didn't have one. I took him to that outside Hyderabad. I said, this is, going to be high-tech city and we will have a building. So he just casually commented to me. He said, Randeep, you may have high-tech city or Hyderabad may become Cyberabad one day, but I need a building, So he casually said, Hyderabad may become Cyberabad one day. Actually, that particular term, which Sanjay Parthasarathi used, we went and told CM that, sir, he was saying Hyderabad may become Cyberabad. He said, okay, let's name this place as Cyberabad. So that name Cyberabad is due to Sanjay Parthasarathi. Though even he may remember it, I don't know, because it was casual conversation with me. But after that, we built high-tech city. High-tech city also, we didn't have money. So how to build infrastructure world-class without money, right? Then we learned from the International Financial Services Center in Dublin. They had the Dockland Authority had given 11 hectares of land as equity into that project. Same model we followed for High-Tech City. And we managed to get L&T. And then we managed to put that in place. And then we managed to get the President Clinton to come there. And then the rest is history. So you see how much effort went into getting Microsoft.
సో ఈ మొత్తం ఎఫర్ట్ లో బాబు గారి ఇది ఎంత పోర్షన్ ఉంటుంది సార్? మేజర్ పోర్షన్ ఉంటుందా? సివిల్ సర్వెంట్లు ఎక్కువ ఉందా మీలాంటి వాళ్ళది?
No, it's 100% because how will civil servant act independently? No way. Unless you have the leadership which is focused on this. So people give me credit. I don't think that credit is deserved actually, because it is the leader who deserves all that credit.
సో ఐఎస్పిది కూడా ఒక స్టోరీ చెప్తుంటారు. ఐఎస్పి కూడా ఇక్కడ రావటం అంటే ఇట్స్ నాట్ సో ఈజీ, బట్ ఆయన ఎఫర్ట్ అంటుంటారు.
Yes, so what happened is that ISP was an initiative of Rajat Gupta, who was the boss of McKinsey at that time. You know, he was the global head of McKinsey. And that was to be located in Mumbai. But what happened is that this Thackeray government at that time, they were asking for reservation for Marathi, for the local state people into the ISP. That item of their asking reservation came in the Economic Times that morning. I happened to read that. So I took that clipping to Mr. Naidu and I said, sir, this may be an opportunity for us. Why don't we request them to look at Andhra Pradesh? Because we will not say that, okay, reservation and all this, like what the Maharashtra government is asking. So the chief minister said, okay, Sudan, why don't you find out who are the people who are the decision makers here and let me talk to them. So that day I contacted everybody. You know, I found out from the McKinsey team who the people were, and chief minister had calls with all of them, and including Mahindra, you know, from Mahindra Motors and all that. So there were quite a few industrialists. And ultimately, what happened is that Pramod Sinha, who became the dean in ISB, he has written a book also, you know, on this. So what happened is they decided to come to Hyderabad just to put pressure on the Maharashtra government that there are others who are asking for us, right? That was just a pressure tactic. It was not serious. They were still serious about Maharashtra. They came to Hyderabad and we rolled out the red carpet for them, and they were brought to chief minister's residence. That night we had prepared a presentation for them, and the chief minister had organized breakfast at his residence. After seeing that presentation, after having breakfast and interacting with the chief minister, they completely changed their mind. They said, let's go to Hyderabad. And that is how ISB came to Hyderabad.
ఏంటి సార్, ఏంటి ఇంతమందిని అట్రాక్ట్ చేయడానికి చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారి దగ్గర ఉన్న మ్యాగ్నెటిక్ పవర్ ఏంటి?
No, there is the magnetic power in this is number one is sincerity. And the fact that you are trying to do something which is not selfish, it is not for your own benefit. You are seriously trying to do something for your state. And you are so serious and hardworking and committed and dedicated that it is obvious that, look, I'm doing this for, you know, I'm not a usual type of politician. I'm very different. And the way I'm interacting with you and how proactive I am, right? I'm calling you up, I'm going out of my way. I've organized right from your reception at the airport to my residence. I myself am serving you idli also. You know, to that level of humility, sincerity, it definitely makes an impact. And he calls, as you know, he calls sir to everybody, you know. Jack Welch, he would call sir, and you know, John Chambers, he would call sir. That humility and sincerity, I think, is what make a difference.
బట్ ఆయన ఎడ్యుకేషన్కి ప్లస్ టెక్నాలజీకి సంబంధం లేదు యాక్చువల్గా ఆయనకి. బట్ టెక్నాలజీ విషయంలో కానీ లేదంటే విజన్, ఇప్పుడు అప్పట్లోనే బయోడైవర్సిటీ గురించి ఆలోచించారు. బట్ అంత ఐడియాస్ రావడానికి ఏంటి, ఆయనకి ఏమన్నా ఒక బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ టీమ్ ఏమన్నా ఉందా? అన్నోన్ బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ టీమ్ ఏమన్నా?
No, so what we had done is that we had put together a team which was an international team of advisors. So it included, for example, Dr. Raj Reddy, you know, of Carnegie Mellon University. He's the first Asian who won the Turing Award, right, in 1994. So it's like the Nobel Prize in technology. So Dr. Raj Reddy would come and give ideas. At that time, there were a lot of people, top people. Indira Nui, the boss of Pepsi, you know, she was plugged with him. And there were so many international people and Indians who are abroad, NRIs, who would come and he would be interacting with everybody. That's one. Second thing is, and this is a thing which I think youngsters should also learn is the ability to listen to even a dumb idea. That doesn't come easily. When we are communicating, we want to communicate our views rather than listen to what the other person is saying, especially if that idea is not a great idea. Now, what is a great quality is to listen to a dumb idea and to creatively transform it into something which is genius. That is what, so you will notice that his ability to listen and be present in the moment, not be distracted no matter what other things are going on, is a remarkable ability. He will be 100% present in his conversation with you, will listen to your idea, and will sort of use that idea in a creative way if that is possible.
సార్ ఇప్పుడు మొత్తం మీరు చెప్తున్న దాని ప్రకారం కంప్లీట్ గా ఆయన డెవలప్మెంట్ యాక్టివిటీ వైపే కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ చేశారు. పొలిటికల్ గా ఎప్పుడు కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ చేసే టైం వచ్చింది ఆయనకి? టైం ఎక్కడుంది అసలు? ఇప్పుడు యాక్చువల్ మీరు చీఫ్ సెక్రటరీ సీఎం ఆఫీస్కి ఉన్నారు, సారీ సీఎం ఆఫీస్కి స్పెషల్ సెక్రటరీగా ఉన్నారు. మరి పొలిటికల్ యాక్టివిటీస్, పొలిటికల్ గురించి అసలు ఆలోచించేవాళ్ళు కదా ఆయన?
No, definitely he was able to balance all that because hard work. When you start your day at 6 o'clock in the morning, you don't take any leave, nothing. Not even Diwali is a holiday for you. One day, Diwali, I'll tell you, we were there at his residence working, and there were these crackers outside. So he asked, why these crackers, So they told him, sir, it is Diwali today. Oh, then you should go early today, all these staff. It is already 9 o'clock, what early we will go there. By the time we reach home is 10 o'clock, So that level of hard work. So what somebody else is putting, say, 8 hours a day, he is putting almost double of that, if not more. So that capability to balance and being very sharp mentally. And so there was no backlog of files in the chief minister's office. None. His file disposal was 100%, it would be done. And the way that files were also managed were very different because of Mr. S.V. Prasad. He had organized that office beautifully. So not like carry the entire file, you just carry the note file and you just brief him on the note file and he grasps that, he gives his orders orally, you record it, sign it, and there it goes.
సో 18 అవర్స్ ఈజీగా పనిచేసేవాళ్ళు. మరి
Easy.
సివిల్ సర్వెంట్లు చాలా మంది ఇబ్బంది పడేవాళ్ళు అంటారు ఆయనతో పాటు పని చేయలేక.
No. I'll give you my own example that I used to be required to be at his residence 6 o'clock because he used to review the chief minister's information system. So when he's reviewing the CMs, and that was my responsibility, so that interaction is with me. Now what happens is that I work with him since morning 6 o'clock, and there are times when actually we had to work overnight. Because say, I'll give you the example. In the evening, he says that, Sudan, tomorrow morning, let's review the situation of transformers in the state. We don't have data on that transformer. So tomorrow morning, how to show CM transformers in the state? Which means I go back to my office, I call the chairman APSCB, he calls his superintending engineers. At night, vehicles are sent to the residence. They are asked to give data. That data comes. My team is there 24/7, which is take that data, put it on pilot light shift. I am awake the whole night. And morning we go and say, sir, here is the transformers for, situation of transformers in the state. Now that level of working, constantly. So what was happening is my driver is not able to manage because he comes with me before I start, right? Because he has to come from his residence and he drops me and then goes home. So I requested the government that I need 2 drivers because this is not fair on my driver of the hours we are keeping, right? And GAD on that file wrote that this will be setting a bad precedent to give 2 drivers for 1 vehicle, right? Because the responsibility is diluted and other officers will ask. So Chief Minister wrote on that file that any officer willing to work like Sudan, let this be a precedent.
Oh.
So I got 2 drivers for me. So just imagine, it was not easy. It's not easy to manage with that sort of pressure. And it is tough. Every time I went with him to Davos, I lost weight because you have to be with him in the Congress Center constantly. You have to then come back and you have to send press releases back home because you are the only guy with him in the Congress Center.
Yeah.
You have to take the intelligence briefings, present it to him in the morning, then go inside, brief him. So it is tough.
ఇప్పుడు ఆ టైంలో సార్ అట్రాక్ట్ చేయడానికి, ఇండస్ట్రియలిస్ట్‌ని అట్రాక్ట్ చేయడానికి కొన్ని కొన్ని ఈవెంట్స్ పెట్టేవాళ్ళు. అది కొన్ని పేపర్‌లు అప్పట్లో ఈయన క్యాబరె డాన్సులు పెడుతున్నారనేటువంటి న్యూస్‌లు గూడా వచ్చినియి. మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేశారో మీకు గుర్తుండే ఉంటది. అంటే ఆ టైప్ ఆఫ్ న్యూస్ కూడా వచ్చింది. అలాంటి కొన్ని కొన్ని ఈవెంట్స్ పెట్టడానికి కారణం ఏంటి? కొన్ని ఈవెంట్స్ ఎంటర్‌టైన్‌మెంట్ ఈవెంట్స్ కూడా పెడతారు. ఐఏఎస్‌లకి అంటే సివిల్ సర్వెంట్‌లకి గాని, లేదా ఇండస్ట్రియలిస్ట్‌లకి గాని ఇలాంటి అనేది కూడా ఉండేది అప్పట్లో.
I don't recall even one such thing.
హ్మ్.
I'm sorry,
అంటే
I don't recall even one. He was so busy doing his serious work. We went to, I'll give you the example, we went to the US from, I think it was 12th to 25th of September 1997, 2 weeks trip to the US. And there was not one moment which was spent on shopping or anything other than work. In fact, the embassy staff and the consulate in San Francisco, the guy said they have not seen a delegation like this. Because at least they spend 1 hour to do some shopping, somewhere, to visit as a tourist. Zero. And it was constant work, work, work. So where is the question of doing entertainment and all that? Chance hai ledu.
హ్మ్. అంటే కొన్ని కొన్ని మీడియాలో అప్పుడొచ్చినటువంటి న్యూస్‌ని నేను మెన్షన్ చేశాను మీకు. అలాగే ఇంకొక న్యూస్ కూడా ఇప్పటికీ ఆయన్ని వెంటాడుతూ ఉంది. అదేంటంటే వ్యవసాయం దండగ అని చెప్పేసి ఈయనేదో అన్నారని, వ్యవసాయం వేస్ట్ అని చెప్పి ఆయనేదో అన్నారని, అలాంటి న్యూస్ వచ్చింది గదా! దానికి అప్పట్లో మీరున్నారు గదా! స్పెషల్ సెక్రటరీగా.
No, 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 not at all. In fact, so many things were done for agriculture, right? He made a special, so many new programs were launched for agriculture at that time. So that is, I don't think that is fair.
సో మీకు మెమరబుల్ ఏదన్నా ఇన్సిడెంట్ ఉంది అనంటే చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారితోటి ఏముంది మీ టెన్యూర్‌లో? ఆల్‌మోస్ట్ 10 ఇయర్స్ ట్రావెల్ చేశారు కదా! 95-2005 అంటే 2004 అనుకోండి. 2004లో ఆయన ఆహ్, సీఎంగా దిగిపోయారు. 95-2004 మీరు ఆయనతోటే ఉన్నారు గదా!
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I can share with you memorable event, one which is official related and one personal, right?
ఆ!
So I'm happy to even share my personal event with you. So at the official level, in 1997, the chief minister wanted the AP state wide area network to be set up in Andhra Pradesh, and he wanted free bandwidth from Government of India. BSNL free bandwidth he wanted, 2 megabits per second. So what happened is that Mr. Bulli Ramaiah was
బుల్లిరామయ్య.
Bulli Ramaiah. He used to be the Minister for Commerce in the
హ్మ్.
center. So Mr. Naidu was going for some interstate council meeting in Vigyan Bhavan. I think it was 27th of November of 1997. We were there in Delhi. So we went there, and then Mr. Naidu said that you go with Mr. Bulli Ramaiah and you meet Mr. Beni Prasad Verma, the Minister for Telecom, and ask for this 2 megabits per second. Because as a civil servant, I cannot go directly. So he used Mr. Bulli Ramaiah as minister to get that access. So I went, Mr. Bulli Ramaiah, we went. The minister, Mr. Verma, called his advisors and we had a discussion. The advisor said that number one, you have no idea about how much bandwidth you're asking. 2 megabits per second is too much. How can you ever use that sort of bandwidth? Today it's laughable, right? 2 megabits is nothing.
Yeah.
Singapore is installing a network at 10G, 10 Gbps. And what is 2 Mbps? Number one. Number two, they said, how can we give it to you free? Everybody will ask for it free. This is a bad idea. And despite Mr. Bulli Ramaiah also trying, nothing happened. We came back to Vigyan Bhavan and totally disappointed. We told Mr. Naidu that, sir, they are not willing to give and they are very much opposed to this idea. So I thought that will be the end of it because we have tried, right? But no, Mr. Naidu, that in the meeting itself, he went to Prime Minister. I.K. Gujral was the Prime Minister. He went to him. He said, sir, I want you to call the cabinet secretary. So TSR Subramanian was the cabinet secretary at that time. I want you to call him. I want to call these telecom guys and I want a decision on this today. So this thing happened in the morning. By the afternoon, that Vigyan Bhavan meeting is still going on. In the afternoon, the same advisor who was saying not possible and why you give such ideas to your boss and all that was present. The Prime Minister was there, the Cabinet Secretary is there, and Mr. Naidu is there. So the Prime Minister started the meeting, so Mr. Gujral. He said that Mr. Naidu is asking for this some statewide area network and all that. I am not too knowledgeable about it, but I think it's a good idea. What do you think? Right? Yeah, I think it's a good idea. What do you think? He asked that advisor, the same advisor who was making fun of us, right? So that advisor said, sir, it is not a good idea. So I said, fantastic that he is consistent, right? He said, sir, it is not a good idea. It is an excellent idea, sir. It is excellent. We can definitely give it. If, that's how we got that 2 Mbps free of cost from Government of India, which means he will not give up. The amount of persistence, is something which I found also admirable, that if you are convinced about something, just don't give up at the first stage, persist on that. Now, coming to my personal story, I think it was 2000 that we traveled to China and Japan. So I went with him. I was in Japan with him. We were returning back. So the flight touched down at Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong, we had to change flights. But I was traveling to Manila, and he was going back to Hyderabad. I was going to Manila because I had been invited for some talk by the Global Infrastructure Commission. And he had agreed. He said, Sudan, you can go. So when I was just taking leave, and I just, was exiting from that group, the security officer came to me. Lincoln was the security officer. So he came to me. He said, boss says that you may need some dollars. He has some spare dollars he did not spend in Japan because no opportunity to spend. You can take this, you can go with. I said, no, I don't need that. But the gesture that this guy may, need something at a personal level.
Yeah.
I was very touched by that.
Hmm.
So it's not just work. He really take care of you also.
యాక్చువల్గా ఈ పాయింట్ మీరు రైజ్ చేశారు కాబట్టి మెన్షన్ చేశారు కాబట్టి ఆయన మీద ఉన్న ఒక బ్యాడ్ ప్రాపగండా ఏంటంటే హ్యూమన్ రిలేషన్స్ ని మెయింటైన్ చేయడు. నో హ్యూమన్ రిలేషన్స్ ఫర్ చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు అని అంటారు.
No, that is not true. He may, because he's so work oriented, right? And he holds you accountable. So he's a tough taskmaster. That is for sure. So in that, people may think that he's too tough, he's too tough on us. He's asking us to do so much in such short time. But if you're with him long enough, you realize that he's very human, even when I was traveling once with him to Dubai, and I was in business class and he was in first class. So there was a minister sitting next to him. He will not even waste time in the flights, right? He's constantly working on the flight. So this minister came to me and said, boss wants you, he wants to discuss something. So I went to first class, and this minister sat down in my business class seat, right? So I went, and CM said, why you are not with me? Why you are in that business class thing? I said, sir, my eligibility is only business class. I cannot travel first class. He said, no, Sudan, because I need to be briefed all that. Special order. So I always traveled first class with him. And all through the flight, he was constantly working. In fact, I know of cases where minister is next to him. The minister, before CM comes to that seat, right, comes to me and says that, Sudan Garu, can you do me a favor? Can I exchange seats with you? Because boss will ask so many questions,
ఇంకోటి ఏంటి సార్, అంటే హ్యూమన్ రిలేషన్స్ ఉండవు అనే దానికి అప్పట్లో అసెంబ్లీలో కూడా 2-3 సార్లు మెన్షన్ చేశాడు రాజశేఖర్ రెడ్డి. అప్పట్లో బతికున్న రోజుల్లో ఆయన వాళ్ళ బాబు గారి మదరు చనిపోయిన రోజు కూడా ఆయన వెళ్ళలేదు అనేది ఒకటి మెన్షన్ చేస్తూ ఉంటారు. అది ఎందుకని ఆ రోజు అది జరిగింది అనేది మీకు రీకాల్ చేసుకోగలరా?
I do not know what is the background to that, and I do not know, how far that is correct or something. But I know I interacted with him, right? So I can talk about myself. That was a very good sort of interaction, and I always that's the best professional part of my life, working with him.
సార్ 2004 వరకు ఉన్నారు. 2004 ముందు కదా 2003లో అలిపిరి బ్లాస్ట్ జరిగింది. సో బిఫోర్ బ్లాస్ట్ చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు, ఆఫ్టర్ అలిపిరి బ్లాస్ట్ చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు మీకు డిఫరెంట్ గా కనిపిస్తున్నారా?
No, there was no difference. The only difference was that his security detail was changed, was beefed up. So there were a lot of security weak areas which got identified following that. and that part was completely revamped. So that was the change which was there. The way his convoy moves, the vehicle numbers, and the how the secretariat room is configured. Lots of changes were done on the security side. But he, as a person, same, no change.
అంటే కొంతమంది ఏమంటారంటే అప్పుడు యాక్చువల్గా చాలా షార్ప్ ఉండేవాళ్ళు, ఆ తర్వాత షార్ప్నెస్ తగ్గింది అని కొంతమంది అంటుంటారు.
I don't believe that, because just imagine, I met him after so many years this year. On 1st January, I met him when I was in Hyderabad. I just happened to be in Hyderabad, so I saw him. And he asked me something which actually he discussed with me when I left him in 2004. So this is 2024, 20 years ago. He made something, there was some discussion between us.
Oh.
He recalled that discussion and he asked me. I thought, how can he remember that? No way.
Oh.
So he's, as far as being mentally sharp, in fact, I always admire how he's able to do that. I thought maybe because he meditates regularly, every morning, and is focused. So the fact that you are practicing is what gives you that mental, and constantly you have to remember so many things, right? You have to remember people's names. Otherwise, you cannot be a good politician without remembering names of people at least.
Yeah.
You have to remember so many facts, figures, and so I did not see any decline in his mental capabilities. In fact, I was super impressed that he is remembering exact conversation which happened 20 years ago.
Oh. So there is no change in his.
I didn't see any change. No change.
Actually, sir, 95 to 2004. This is a golden period for United Andhra Pradesh అంటూ ఉంటారు ఫర్ డెవలప్మెంట్ యాంగిల్. బట్ అప్పటికే 95 కంటే ముందే అక్కడ కర్ణాటకలో ఐటీ సెక్టార్ ఇంకా ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ కన్నా ఎక్కువ ఉండేది, ఎక్కువగా ఫార్వర్డ్ ఉండేది. బట్ దాన్ని ఈయన ఓవర్కమ్ చేసేసి వచ్చి రావడానికి ఆడ ఎన్డీఏ ప్రభుత్వం సెంటర్లో అలాగే రాష్ట్రంలో ఎన్డీఏ ప్రభుత్వం ఉండడమా, లేదంటే చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు క్యాపబిలిటీ అంటారా?
No, I think it was a combination of many factors, right? So one is that if you have a government which is very, very friendly to investors. So just imagine that somebody is able to contact the chief minister by email. Okay, so they send an email to him. Now, of course, that email we read and we tell CM that, sir, this guy is contacted, this is what he's asking. He will give a reply that you send him this reply. So just imagine that a guy sends an email to the chief minister. Within half an hour, he get a reply from me saying that, chief minister asked me to get in touch with you and this is what he has said. That level of response, how to get that with any state, it is very tough, in the normal course of things. First of all, to just get access to the chief minister, he's busy with so many things, and be able to get a response in half an hour on email, and be able to then get a solution to what you're trying to do. I know of Computer Associates, Sanjay Kumar. Of course, later he had some problems, but Sanjay Kumar was wanting some area in the financial district, which was at that time. And Computer Associates was important to us. We wanted it to invest. That decision he could take on the spot, that let's shift and let's make this available for Computer Associates because we want them there. That sort of decision making and being investor friendly was what distinguished us compared to any other state.
యాక్చువల్గా ఆయన ఐటీ మీద పెట్టి అప్పట్లో ఈయన్ని హైటెక్ సీఎం అనేవాళ్ళు. చాలా మంది హైటెక్ సీఎం చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు అనేవాళ్ళు. ఆ హైటెక్ అంటే టెక్నాలజీ మీద పడిపోయి, ఐటీ సెక్టార్ మీద పడిపోయి, కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ అటు ఎక్కువైపోయి, రిమైనింగ్ సెక్టార్ని ఎస్పెషల్లీ అగ్రికల్చర్ని నెగ్లెక్ట్ చేశారు అనేటువంటి ఒక అపవాదం ఉంది ఆయన.
I think that is not correct, because he was so much focused on agriculture, on social welfare, on all the things which had to do with weaker sections, plus these, women self-help groups that he had developed in rural areas, and then there was this Pragati Padam. I even forget those, those programs that had, Yes,
Janmabhoomi.
Janmabhoomi program was there, you
Yeah.
know. So all that was rural focused, right? In fact, there was a South Korean model which he implemented in rural areas in Andhra Pradesh.
Hmm.
You know, so that Janmabhoomi program was part of that model which he borrowed from South Korea actually.
Yeah. సార్ ఇప్పుడు రూర్బన్స్ అనేటువంటిది ఒక పాలసీ ఉంది సార్. రూర్బన్ పాలసీని ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేస్తే మొత్తం ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ యొక్క టోటల్ మొత్తం మొత్తం సినారియో మారిపోతుంది అని అంటారు. నిజమేనా సార్ అది? రూర్బన్స్.
What is that?
రూర్బన్ అబ్దుల్
Rurban.
కలాం అబ్దుల్ కలాం తయారు చేసింది. అంటే విలేజెస్ ని దాన్ని సిటీస్ గా మారిస్తే టోటల్ గా మొత్తం మారిపోతుంది అని అంటారు ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఆస్పెక్ట్ లో.
To change villages into cities, is it?
సిటీస్ రూర్బన్స్.
I see. Yeah,
రూరల్
so
ఏరియాస్ ని అర్బన్ గా మార్చడం అంటే
yeah,
ఫెసిలిటీస్
so
అంటే స్మార్ట్ సిటీలు అనుకోండి మీరు.
right. Yeah, so I think that certainly is the way to go, because if you can provide some minimum facilities to each village, then the pressure on cities, the main urban centers, will also reduce. And if you're able to decentralize employment through virtual and remote jobs, that will further help to avoid congestion in cities. And it is good for the environment, good for for people living a more peaceful and a better life. So I think that's a good idea. It's a novel concept if it can be implemented.
చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు అదే పనిలో ఉన్నట్టున్నారు. బట్ ఇప్పుడు మీలాగా సివిల్ సర్వెంట్స్ కోఆపరేట్ చేసే పరిస్థితి అక్కడ కనిపించట్లేదు. మీకు అక్కడి నుంచి చూస్తే అలా అనిపిస్తుంది ఇప్పుడు యాజ్ ఆఫ్ నౌ సిచ్యువేషన్ ఏపీలో?
I'm not so much plugged into AP, to be honest. I just casually went and saw Chief Minister, Mr. Naidu on 1st of January. But I am not so closely plugged in. I used to be in touch with Mr. S.V. Prasad. He's unfortunately no more. He passed away.
Yeah.
My batchmates have all retired, and so my connection with Andhra Pradesh is much less. And one is busy with all these other things that I'm doing. So I'm not so plugged in, to be honest.
కానీ చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారితో ఇంత అసోసియేషన్ ఉన్నటువంటి మీరు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు ఏం చేస్తున్నారు అనేది మీరు అక్కడి నుంచి తెలుసుకోవట్లేదా?
No, I get some news from Mr. J. Chaudhary. He keeps sort of me posted.
Yeah.
But I am not so closely following Andhra Pradesh as I used to when I was in the state itself. Then the situation was very different. Yes.
ఆయన్ని అరెస్ట్ చేసి రాజమండ్రి సెంట్రల్ జైలుకి రిమాండ్కి పంపించినప్పుడు అప్పుడు మీకు ఏమనుకున్నారు? మీ ఫీలింగ్ ఏంటి అప్పుడు ఆ న్యూస్
No,
వినగానే?
I felt sad, to be honest. And I felt for actually also his wife, who I have a lot of respect and regard for her, because there were so many instances when we were working late, right, in the Chief Minister's residence, and she would ensure that we have a meal, at least at his place, and she was the one who took care of us actually, So I really felt for her, because she's such a nice person, and she was so human with us, and never, no request that you do this in the government, never interfered in our work, and took care of us, So I felt actually bad for her.
53 days ఆయన్ని జైల్లో ఉంచారు.
Yeah.
So-
And that was, a lot of people were not happy with that, and especially how he was treated. Some people, they did reach out to me and confide, but that is a decision which the powers that be took, so I cannot comment on that.
మీరు అసలు ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేశారా ఇలాంటి బ్లేమ్స్ ని చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు ఎదుర్కొంటారు అని ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేశారా? ఆయన బిహేవియర్ బాగా తెలిసినటువంటి మీరు.
No, I thought he was absolutely amazing, as a leader. You see that I think it was again in 1998, I think. 98, we went to Davos, first time. That the World Economic Forum has a magazine called World Link. And in the 1998 November issue of World Link, he was one of the members of a global dream cabinet. So international, they identified the best politicians globally and they constituted a dream cabinet internationally. He was a member of that dream cabinet with the Prime Minister of Ireland at that time and with some people. Even that Egyptian Boutros Ghali was, Minister of Finance at that time in Egypt. So that is the level. I don't think anybody since any Indian politician has got into the dream cabinet.
Okay.
I don't recall anything.
సో మీకు ఒక సివిల్ సర్వెంట్ తో పాటు ఒక అటాచ్మెంట్ అయితే చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారితో ఆ ఫ్యామిలీ తోటి ఉందని చెప్పి మీరు ఎక్స్ప్లెనేషన్ అంటే మీరు చెప్తున్నట్టు దాన్ని బట్టి అర్థమవుతుంది. మరి ఇప్పుడు వాళ్ళతోటి టచ్ లో ఉండకుండా ఉండగలుగుతున్నారా?
No, see, that first of all, CM is also busy, right? You cannot just call him up or WhatsApp him, right? It's not that straightforward. Number one, I know that he's busy, so why disturb him, And unless I'm able to offer something which is of valuable and which contributes to what he's trying to do, there is little point in intruding into his time. So if I have a very bright idea, I say, oh, fantastic, this would really help the state, and I want access to him, I can get access anytime. No issue at all.
Yeah. లోకేష్ గారు మీకు చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి తెలిసి ఉంటుందిగా?
Yeah, I know Lokesh. Yeah, very well.
చైల్డ్హుడ్ నుంచి బాగా అతను చూసుంటారు కదా మీరు?
Yeah, and I also saw him in the World Bank. When I was in the World Bank, did a stint in the World Bank also.
Oh.
Yes.
ఓకే. ఆ వరల్డ్ బ్యాంక్ నుంచి వచ్చిన ఐడియా నేనే సార్ అది డైరెక్ట్ బెనిఫిట్ అనేది అంటే నగదు బదిలీ అంటాం కదా తెలుగులో.
No, so World Bank just gives you an exposure because you are with an institution which is operating globally and is operating on the most important challenges of our time. So so I am fortunate to have worked with the World Bank because it gave me a completely different exposure and different level.
Okay.
And the World Bank actually, offered me that position partly because of what work we did in Andhra Pradesh. So they wanted that to be replicated in other places and all that.
సార్ లోకేష్ మీతోటి ఇంటరాక్ట్ అయ్యారు ఎప్పుడన్నా?
So I interacted last with him when he was in the World Bank, not after that.
అప్పుడు మీకేమనిపించింది? షార్ప్ గా చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు లాగానే షార్ప్ గా ఉన్నట్టు అనిపించిందా లోకేష్?
He's very well-meaning and highly educated and also humble because whenever he interacted with me, it was a pleasure to interact with him. See, people can be arrogant, right? He's not. He was always down to earth, which is a great quality.
మీకు చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి తెలుసు కదా లోకేష్?
Yeah, I know him when he was, when we used to see him in the residence. And of course, I saw him in the World Bank.
ఎప్పుడు సీఎం ఆఫీస్ తీసుకురాలేదా లోకేష్ ని అప్పుడు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు?
So no, not in the office. His office was very professional. He was completely official in the office. It's only that somebody would say at 10 o'clock when we are still in the office, one of those servants would come that, Madam Garu Antunaru, you can please have your dinner at least. That sort of thing.
సో మేడం గారు టచ్ ఇక్కడ మీరు మీటింగ్ వచ్చినప్పుడు డెఫినెట్ గా అందరికి ఏమేమి కావాలో అవన్నీ చూసేవాళ్ళ చాలా.
She was really good, very thoughtful, and mind you that not once did she interfere in any official decision. Not once. I was there 9 years. You see, that is something to be respected.
చంద్రబాబు గారి సక్సెస్ కి భువనేశ్వరే కారణం అంటారా? భువనేశ్వర్ గారు?
I don't I can't comment on that, but definitely she has a contribution, to seeing that everything is working smoothly, and she took care of his entire business, right?
Yeah.
So that he can devote his full time on the state.
Yeah.
So that credit definitely goes to her.
సుడాన్ గారు 2004 అంటే 2004లో ప్రభుత్వం మారిపోయింది. 2005 నుంచి సుడాన్ గారు ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ ని వదిలిపెట్టి వెళ్ళిపోయారు. ఏంటి కారణం ఏంటి? రీజన్?
No, I just got an offer. Actually, what happened is that the World Bank was headhunting for people. So they they identified me and they said that, why don't you apply for a position? So I actually applied for that position, and the timing just worked out because the timing was when Mr. Naidu had lost that election in May, and then there was some conference in the US which was done by IFC, International Finance Corporation. I was a speaker in that conference. And then the chair of that meeting was practice manager. I eventually became practice manager, but practice manager was chair. And he said that, Randeep, why don't you, let us get you interviewed here itself. So I had some 10, 12 interviews in that period. And in fact, to go to the US, Mr. Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy was already chief minister then.
Yeah.
So I met Mr. YSR and I said, sir, I have this conference in the US, so I want your permission. He said, yes, Sudan, go ahead. So he was very positive, actually. But was my only interaction with him, by the way. Because after I went to the World Bank, then I have not come back to Andhra Pradesh, right? My interaction was when Mr. Mohan Kanda was chief secretary. He was sitting and Mr. Y.S. Reddy was there. So I met Mr. YSR and I told him, sir, I have this meeting, this event which I have been invited. He said, yes, Sudan, go ahead, no problem. And very enthusiastically. So that
అంటే
was.
ఒకటి ఏంటంటే అంటే రాజశేఖర్ రెడ్డి దగ్గర పని చేయలేకనే అంటే చేయటం ఇష్టం లేక వెళ్ళిపోయారు సుడాన్ గారు అని అంటారు.
No, not at all, not at all.
No.
And see, I'm a civil servant, right? So even when these cadres were being divided in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, if I was so much attached to only one part of the political spectrum, I would have opted for Andhra Pradesh, right? Because Mr. Naidu was in Andhra Pradesh. But actually, if you see my preference, I said I am indifferent. You can put me in Telangana or Andhra, anywhere. I am a civil servant. How does it matter? Yeah. So I never chose also which cadre to take. I said I am open to both cadres. Yeah. So it is not like that. I mean, profession is one thing, and the opportunity to work at that level is, of course, I'm grateful for that.
ఇంకోటి ఏంటంటే సార్ న్యూస్ లో ఆ మధ్య కాలంలో వచ్చిన న్యూస్ ఏంటంటే మిస్సింగ్ ఐఏఎస్ లో సుడాన్ గారు అనే చెప్పి ఒక న్యూస్ వచ్చింది.
Yes. So I know the background to that because one journalist himself told me what is the background to that story. Yeah. And there was some officer in the Telangana cadre who instigated that. And one guy just wrote it without checking up. Now the situation is that I retired officially in the year 2007. The story had come in 2015 or 16. So how can I be missing when my application for retirement is 2007? Okay. Right? And the government has it. And that is also the government of India. So, and in fact, it is very interesting that Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister at that time. And Dr. Manmohan Singh is one of my father's great friends. My father knows him personally. So much so that when my father passed away, Dr. Manmohan Singh flew to Panchkula and he and his wife came there, you know. And in fact, the autobiography or the biography of Dr. Manmohan Singh has so many references to my father. Okay. In fact, his daughter has written that book, so I knew the Prime Minister very well. But what happened is that my retirement, because I took early retirement, that was pending finalization in Government of India. I could have just approached the Prime Minister and got it done, right? Yeah. But I know my father will never ask any favor from the Prime Minister. So I also did not ask him. And it eventually just happened. So to write a story that I'm missing when I have already applied for retirement that is being processed, I thought was not fair. I gave a rejoinder to that. They did not publish it online. See, the story about missing is online. Yeah. The rejoinder is not published online. They published it in the print edition of Deccan Chronicle. Yeah.
Yes.
See, that's not fair, right?
వాలంటరీ రిటైర్మెంట్ తీసుకున్నారు సార్, జనరల్ రిటైర్మెంట్?
వాలంటరీ రిటైర్మెంట్. ఐ టుక్ వాలంటరీ.
ఓకే. ఆ తర్వాత సార్ రీసెంట్ గా యాక్చువల్ గా మీరు వాలంటరీ రిటైర్మెంట్ తీసుకున్నారు. ప్రీతి సుడాన్ గారి ఇష్యూ కూడా ఒకటి వచ్చింది. ఏంటంటే ఏదో ఒక కంప్లైంట్ కూడా ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ లో అప్పట్లో జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి ముఖ్యమంత్రిగా ఉన్నప్పుడు రాశారు.
I think that was also without any substance. I don't know the details so much, But I think that was having no ground. Otherwise, how would she be with the UPSC of all places? And now she's chairperson of UPSC. So obviously there was no basis. And many times what happens is that people are ill-informed and they write stories.
Yeah.
For example, I will give you an example. The Asian Development Bank wanted me to do a study on the private sector role in IT development in South Asia. So Nepal, Bangladesh, India, all these countries. So I spoke to Mr. Naidu. He said, yes, you should do that. And he gave me permission. We wrote to Government of India. We got cadre clearance because as an IAS officer, I have to get clearance. And Asian Development Bank is a government organization because it is the shareholders are governments, right? But this one of the papers in Andhra Pradesh published a full page, front page story that I am working for the private sector. I took no clearance from the government, and this is I am doing this.
Yeah.
Now, just imagine that Asian Development Bank is not a private sector organization; it's a government organization, and you publish a full story. The topic is private sector, certainly, but I'm not working for private sector, right? I'm working for the Asian Development Bank, and cadre clearance is there. It's a matter of record
Yeah.
that the government of India has cleared and the state government has cleared. So press can sometimes go, wrong. And journalists, sometimes, not all, there are excellent journalists as well.
Yeah.
Some people are lazy and they don't do their fact checking correct. And they don't have the understanding also. Because sometimes
Yeah.
what happens is these stringers are given the opportunity to write.
Yeah.
And they may not be so highly, they don't have the idea that this is how the system works. Asian Development Bank is not a private company. So that is how it works. And that is true. You see so many such instances, where press can go wrong.
Yeah.
And in fact, in this particular case where they put the story, the government put a case against this particular individual. And I happened to come to Hyderabad for the first hearing of that case. And when the public prosecutor showed me the file, I found that this particular journalist, more than some 15 times the non-bailable arrest warrant was issued because he failed to turn up.
Oh.
I felt so bad for him, actually, to be honest. I really felt bad for him. I said,
Yeah.
look, that is more than punishment. I would not have expected.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote a story. Okay, the guy was not informed, and so I actually told the public prosecutor that forget it. It's already too much. 15 non-bailable arrest warrants against this guy. And I then wrote to government also that I request you to withdraw this case because it is already this person has suffered a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
సో మీరు అన్నట్టు జర్నలిస్టులు కొంచెం విజన్ కూడా కష్టం జర్నలిస్టులకు చాలా మంది. ఇప్పుడు మీరు 2020 విజన్ గురించి ఎన్ని నెగిటివ్ స్టోరీస్ అప్పట్లో మీరు చూసుంటారు గవర్నమెంట్ మీద.
Yeah.
మీరు స్పెషల్ సెక్రటరీ ఉన్నప్పుడు
Yeah, there were
2020
lots of stories. Lots. So, for example, when we went to see Bill Gates in Delhi, there was an editorial in one of the papers in Andhra Pradesh which said that how foolish, first of all, to go, for chief minister to go and meet some industry guy, business guy, all the way to Delhi, one. And number two, to think that Microsoft will ever come to Andhra Pradesh. You forget about Andhra Pradesh, it will not come to India. That is the editorial. But you read that editorial with the hindsight, you see how foolish they were when they were writing all that stuff.
సార్ ఇంకోటి ఏంటంటే చాలా ఆయన నీళ్ళ వెంటాడుతుంది ఏంటంటే ఆయన సొంత సామాజిక వర్గానికే చేసుకున్నారు, మొత్తం ఆయన సొంత సామాజిక వర్గం కోసమే చేసుకుంటారు. ఇప్పుడు అమరావతిలో కూడా అదే చేస్తున్నారు అని అంటారు. అలాంటి యాటిట్యూడ్ ఉందా చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారి కేసులో?
No, that is, see, I sometimes feel bad, politics is not a clean sort of area, because there are constantly people trying to find fault with you, constantly, and that becomes a problem. So I don't know, and that is true for all countries. You look at US, I look at US politics, how the discussion between Trump and Kamala Harris and what Trump is saying about her and all that.
Yeah.
It is politics is like that. So
Yeah.
I rather stay away from all this.
నెక్స్ట్ ఏంటి సుడాన్ గారు ఏపీ డెవలప్మెంట్ లో ఒక పార్ట్ అవుతారా? అయ్యే ఛాన్సెస్ అలాంటి ఆలోచన ఏమైనా ఉందా?
No, see, my loyalty to Andhra Pradesh, I would like to do something for the state, right? And anything I can do, I would love to do that. Because that state has given me so much. All my, career profile that I have today, all the successes and all the things I'm proud of, is all because of Andhra Pradesh. So I would be happy to contribute in any way, but to relocate to Andhra Pradesh at this point is not feasible.
ఓ ఓకే. ఈవెన్ చంద్రబాబు గారు ఇన్వైటెడ్.
No, the chief minister, of course, it's very difficult to refuse him, but but he will understand that, look, this is what this guy is trying to do.
ఆ అండర్స్టాండింగ్ మీ ఇద్దరి మధ్య బాగా ఉందంటారా?
Yeah, I would definitely.
సో మొత్తం ఒక వ్యూ కనుక చూసుకుంటే కమింగ్ సూన్ అమరావతి లేదంటే ఏపీ ఎలా ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేయొచ్చు సార్?
No, I think the concept of Amravati was good to put a world-class city, right, with the best infrastructure, and see that it becomes a showcase. And if you're able to do that, then attract investments and then have a different profile for Andhra Pradesh. And to collaborate with the Singapore government, to do that, because Singapore was involved. And Singapore, by the way, is really well organized and is a good role model to adopt. Now, those guys are very forward looking. As I mentioned earlier in the interview, they're really good forward. So I feel that given proper vision and determination, it should be possible to make a success of it, no?
కానీ సింగపూర్ తోటి ఎవరైతే కన్సార్టియం ఉందో సింగపూర్ కన్సార్టియం తోటి కుదుర్చుకున్న ఒప్పందాలు సిఆర్డిఏది అవి మొత్తం ఇప్పుడు ప్రాసెస్లో లేవు అని అంటారు. ఆ ఈశ్వరన్ అనే అతను మినిస్టర్ ఎవరు ఉన్నారు అప్పుడు వచ్చారు, ఆయన కుదుర్చుకున్న ఒప్పందాలు చెల్లలేదు, ఆయన కేసులు ఉన్నాయి, అవంతా కూడా నమ్మడానికి లేదు అని అంటారు.
No, see, I do not know what is the entire background in the story, but one thing I can tell you that Singapore government is a very transparent government in the sense that there is no scope for any corruption there, zero. Because that government is so strict, there is zero tolerance of corruption. Number one. Number two, it is an excellent city to collaborate with because it is so forward looking. That is number two. There is no other city in the world which I feel, I have looked at different cities. I also work on smart cities with the World Bank. But I admire Singapore very much, the way that they think about the future. And what happened is that in 1997, the chief minister made a visit to Malaysia and Singapore. And in Singapore, he met with Goh Chok Tong, who was the prime minister at that time. And he requested help of Singapore on digital government, because Singapore at that time had a concept of one-stop, non-stop government. And they were the leaders in digital government at that point in time. So after that, there was a person called Perline Chan. She was the CEO of Singapore Network Services. And she was deputed to Andhra Pradesh to see how they could help us on digital government. So Singapore financed a study with McKinsey and Company on developing citizen services in Andhra Pradesh. And the idea was that, there would be no need, for example, for a lot of these labor, offices in certain cases where some registration is done for unemployment and all that. It could be done electronically, etc., etc. I think it was February of 1999 that when that report came out, all the employee unions got together and they went on strike. They said that how can you give to the private sector, this delivery of citizen services? How can you allow data to go to Singapore? This is data which should remain in India. Actually, no data was going to Singapore. It was only that the study was financed jointly by Singapore. And there was a lot of problem because of that. But then Chief Minister said, okay, number one, we will get it done with an Indian company. We will get only government employees manning the e-Seva center. We will start with Banjara Hills and we will see how it works. And only if it succeeds, we will go forward. That is the start of e-Seva. And it became so popular that the rest of India has followed that path, right? Now you have citizen services and digital services all over the country. And that was the starting point. And even that was so much criticized for Singapore when actually the guys were trying to help us, and not easy to get that help because it was only the chief minister meeting the prime minister himself and asking for help from a country which was at the cutting edge at that time. So it's a lack of understanding also sometimes. And they are not there, right? They are not in the meeting. They are not privy to what discussion is taking place. What are the complexity of that decision and what is the intent of that discussion? That is what creates a problem when these things come up and there's a not a correct understanding of what is the intent.
అంటే పేపర్లెస్ గవర్నెన్స్ అంటున్నారు. పేపర్లెస్ గవర్నెన్స్ అనేది కరప్షన్ ని తగ్గిస్తుంది అంటారా?
Oh, definitely, because accountability, right? Everything is electronic, so all transaction is being accounted, tracked. If you delay something, you can't sit on a file. You delay, it is recorded. What you are saying is recorded. And that person is not coming face to face to give you something under the table. It is all remote. So that is the best way to cut that interface, so that there is no corruption.
కొత్తగా ఏర్పడింది ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్. అదేమో ఇన్నోవేటివ్ గా వెళ్ళాలి. మిగతా రాష్ట్రాలతోటి కాంపిటేటివ్ గా వెళ్ళడం అని అంటే కొంత టఫే. బట్ ఎంతో కొంత ఇన్నోవేటివ్ గా అయితే వెళ్ళాలి. ఆ ఇన్నోవేషన్ ఏంటి? ఓన్లీ ఏఐ ఏనా? ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ ఒకటేనా? ఇంకేమన్నా ఉన్నాయా?
No, so innovation can be anything, right? Anything better is an innovation. What I feel is, and that's what my company is working, by the way, we want to introduce innovation in the social impact business, okay, or in the social impact space. So, for example, one way to get innovation is to do crowdsourcing of ideas. So, what we are doing is my company is developing a platform where we will put the big challenges of the world on that platform. So, say one challenge might be, for example, how do you capture skills and employment records, maybe efficiently, right? And what might be the standards, what might be the way to capture it so that it is future proof. Now you put it on that platform and you encourage people to contribute ideas. Now that is one way to capture innovation because you get so many new ideas. That's one way. Another way also maybe to ask startups also to contribute ideas, and if an idea is good, have that startup to implement that idea because it has gone through a competitive process of contributing ideas and getting its idea as the best idea. So that's another way of introducing innovation and also getting that startup relocated to your state. Which is you kill two birds with one stone. So you say that, okay, this is a global competition and we would like to get the best ideas. And whichever startup comes with that idea, you give them preference on procurement because that's the best idea. It has gone through a test of competitive selection. And then you ask that startup to come to Andhra Pradesh and implement that idea. So that way you start bringing some innovative companies also into your space through a procurement mechanism. That is again one approach of doing things. And then of course is that if you create digital twin. So for example, if you are saying that you will transform a village and make it into a city-like sort of situation, you will improve that village dramatically. So just imagine if you create a digital twin of that city, of that village, and you put it online and you do a competition that how could you transform this space into something which is very innovative and very futuristic and forward-looking, but low cost. You may get some ideas, and because this is digital, those ideas will also be digital. Then you can present those ideas to a villager and he can actually walk through that design. They can explore what it will look, from this angle. Where will my house be? What my house will look like? What that shopping center will look like? What will be? All that is possible, and you bring innovation by getting international architects, international ideas into a village in Andhra Pradesh. That's again innovation. So I feel that the opportunities are immense and the possibility is infinite. It's not as if there's a finite limit to innovation. So but I hope that the government will leverage those platforms. I don't want to offer my platform because people will again say that Ranadeep Sudan, he has his nexus with Mr. Naidu, and Mr. Naidu has done a favor to him. That's also one reason I don't want to be in Andhra Pradesh.
దట్స్ బ్యాడ్ థింగ్ యాక్చువల్గా చెప్పాలంటే.
Right.
సరే, ఇంకోటి ఏంటంటే ఏపీకి ఉన్న అడ్వాంటేజెస్ ఏంటంటే, ఒకటి సీ కోస్ట్, అంటే ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ ఇంపోర్ట్స్ పెంచుకునేదానికి ఒకటి ఉంది. ఫార్మాలోకి ఎక్కువ ఇంపార్టెన్స్ ఇస్తే బెటరా, లేదంటే ఐటీ సెక్టర్కి ఇస్తే బెటరా, మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ సెక్టర్కి ఇస్తే బెటరా, లేదంటే రియల్ ఎస్టేట్ లేదా నిర్మాణ రంగం ఇది ఉంది కదా వాటికి ఇస్తే బెటరా, ఏ ఫీల్డ్కి ఏ రంగానికి ప్రాముఖ్యత ఇస్తే బెటర్ అవుతుంది ఇప్పుడున్న సిచ్యువేషన్లో?
No, so see, the prioritization is an exercise which governments typically are not very good at. You know, it is called the picking winners. There's a huge debate in economics on picking winners. So when you prioritize, you are picking a winner. You say that this sector is the one which is I'm picking, I'm putting my bets on this sector, that this is the sector which will make a difference. So typically, including the World Bank's view on this is that you should let the market decide as to which sector has the most promise and the most potential, rather than governments being too active on it. I'm not saying that government should completely be hands off, but the mechanism should be largely market driven, while governments can have enlightened policy and see that the playing field is level.
సో ఇప్పుడు ఏపీకి సంబంధించి ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు అయితే డైనమిక్ వెళ్తున్నారని చెప్పి అందరూ అంటున్నారు. ఇండస్ట్రియలిస్టులు కూడా వస్తున్నారు, ప్లస్ వరల్డ్ బ్యాంక్ సంబంధించిన రిప్రజెంటేటివ్స్ కూడా వచ్చారు. దాని రిజల్ట్ని మీరు ఎలా చూస్తున్నారు? రీసెంట్గా వచ్చారు, బాబు గారిని కలిశారు, అలాగే ఏడీబీ రిప్రజెంటేటివ్స్ వచ్చారు, వాళ్ళు కలిశారు. అది ఒక గుడ్ సైన్ కింద చూడాలా, లేదంటే ఏదో సంథింగ్ మనం ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేయనంతగా బెనిఫిట్స్ రాబోతున్నాయి అనుకోవాలా?
So I've no idea because I'm not so plugged in as I told you. I'm not following it also so closely, so not able to give a comment on that.
ఆల్రెడీ ఏదో ఫండ్స్ ఏదో 15,000 crores ఇస్తున్నారు అనేది ఒకటి ఉంది, దాంట్లో నుంచి ఫ్రూట్ఫుల్ గా మీటింగ్ నుంచి తీసుకుంటే. సో అది పాజిటివ్ సైన్ కింద అందరూ ఇండస్ట్రియలిస్టులు అయితే వస్తున్నారు, బట్ అది ఎక్కడా కూడా ఇంకా మెటీరియలైజ్ అవుతున్నట్టు అనిపిస్తుందా మీకు?
I have no idea, what is going on. So, but it's a fact that Andhra Pradesh is getting more resources now because of the political situation in the center and Mr. Naidu's situation there.
సో మీరు ఎలాగో సివిల్ సర్వెంట్స్ కాబట్టి సివిల్ సర్వెంట్స్ మీద ఒక కామెంట్ ఏమైనా చేయగలరా? రీసెంట్ గా చూస్తే కనుక ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్లో ఐపీఎస్లు ఐఏఎస్లు కొంతమంది ఆల్రెడీ వాళ్ళని ఐడెంటిఫై చేశారు. వాళ్ళు చేసినటువంటి గత ప్రభుత్వంలో అంటే జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి హయాంలో చేసినటువంటి దాని మీద వాళ్ళని ఎలా చేస్తున్నారు అనేది మనం చూస్తున్నాం. ఒక్కొక్కటి బయటకు వస్తుంది. ఇలాంటి సిచ్యువేషన్లో చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారు గతంలో నడిపినంత విధంగా ఎఫెక్టివ్ గా ప్రభుత్వాన్ని నడపగలరా?
No, so to be honest, I think the structure of government also has to change. There is a lot of work to be done on the organizational structure of government and how leadership operates and how the civil service operates in a government. See, because we are living in a digital world and we are getting into a situation where everything is digital, right? Now, the architecture of an organization which is working in a digitally native environment has to be different from what it is in an analog world. So one has to completely rethink the organizational structure of government. But that is not easy because of so much vested interest and so much of, people whose lives will be affected if you do a massive reorganization. But you have to start somewhere. So you need to create certain organizational structures which are representative of what government should be looking like in the future. Because then that becomes a point of departure. You can see that, this is how government will work in the future. This is the shape and form. So I feel that if the civil service is involved in that redesign and rethink in terms of innovation and say that, look, what do you think would be Andhra Pradesh? What might look like a futuristic or a future-oriented government internationally, not just in India, but globally? What would government look like and what would be its shape? I feel that there is a lot to learn from UAE because they are trying to reorganize their government and introduce some future concepts as part of their structure. So if the civil service is involved in those sort of positive things, I feel that the state can leverage them better. We are too much involved in the legacy processes of government, and leaders are also not, all leaders are not selfless. Many of them have their own agendas to grind, and that's why things get into, a wrong direction. But if you have some top leadership which is selfless and says that, look, we give you the freedom to think ambitious, think blue sky, think what structure we should have which is fit for a digital age, and how we can transition, that will be a more positive motivation to civil servants.
మీరు ప్లాన్ ఏమైనా ఉందా సార్ ఇప్పుడు ఏపీకి వచ్చే ప్లాన్ ఏమైనా ఉందా?
Not immediately. I'm actually, what's happened is that I didn't see, I was in the government in Andhra Pradesh. One didn't earn much. I earned something in the World Bank. Salary was higher.
Yeah.
So I have put all my money virtually. I am trying to start this, to get this company off the ground. So what's happening is that I've exhausted all my savings. So I don't have any savings left. But what it is that I am working for, say, consulting projects in the World Bank or Asian Development Bank, because I believe in the mission of what we are trying to do. So my company is trying to see how we can help, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people across the world to be prepared for all this churn in the labor market which will be coming, and all these challenges which the world will have to face. So I am busy on that, I really am. In fact, it's a struggle to be an entrepreneur, and I realize that. So I am working on projects in the World Bank, and whatever money I earn, I put in my company, and I'm trying to take it forward, hoping that, okay, what happens if the company fails, right? Worst scenario, at least I start with a good intention that I wanted to make a difference and help the world, and it's okay. I can live simply. I have a pension, no problem.
Again, I am asking one question.
Ah.
ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఏదైతే కంపెనీ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేశారో ఆ కంపెనీ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ ప్రభుత్వంతో ఎంఓఏ చేసుకొని ఎందుకు ఈ డెవలప్మెంట్ యాక్టివిటీలో మీరు భాగస్వాములు అంటే పార్టిసిపేషన్ చేయడానికి మీరు ఎందుకు ఇంకా థింక్ చేస్తున్నారు?
See, the problem is, as soon as I do anything with Andhra Pradesh, and especially with Mr. Naidu, the press will be after me, just like that missing Ranadeep Sudan. There will be so many allegations which are going to invade. I don't want that. Why get that headache,
సో మీకు ఎలాంటి సస్పెక్షన్ ఉందో అలాంటిది ఇండస్ట్రియలిస్టులకు కూడా ఉంది కదా ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ మీద, లేదా?
No, not so. Of course, press has to play a role, which is positive role it should play. But what to do? One cannot help that, because you cannot completely, after all, freedom of press is there, and there are different perspectives on that. So I cannot comment on that. But I am afraid that it may be considered as conflict of interest if I work in Andhra Pradesh.
ఏపీ వైపు చూడటానికి మీరు భయపడుతున్నారా ఈ మొత్తం
conflict of interest? No, basically people will say that he's taking advantage of his proximity to Mr. Naidu. I don't want to sully Mr. Naidu's image nor my own image. Why do that? There is so much opportunity elsewhere to make impact.
బట్ మీకు చంద్రబాబు నాయుడు గారి గురించి బాగా తెలుసు కాబట్టి, ఆయన ఎఫిషియన్సీ గురించి కూడా తెలుసు కాబట్టి డెఫినెట్ గా సక్సెస్ అవుతారు ఆయన అని చెప్పి అనిపిస్తుందా ఈ పొలిటికల్ సిచ్యువేషన్ మీరు అబ్జర్వ్ చేసిన తర్వాత?
No, I have a lot of confidence and faith in him. And it's not just people like him. And I'm not being political, by the way. I have a lot of respect for some outstanding people in other parties as well. Of course, I told you that Dr. Manmohan Singh was my father's personal friend. Even when I got appendectomy done in hospital, he and his wife had come all the way to see me. I have stayed at their house so many times. This time when I was in Delhi, I met with them again. So I'm just looking at good politicians in India who have vision and who are interested in doing something and leaving a legacy which is a positive legacy. I appreciate that. That's all.
సో జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి గవర్నమెంట్ గురించి ఏం చెప్పాలంటే ఏం చెప్తారు సుడాన్ గారు?
I have no comment because I never worked with them. I can only comment on my interaction with Mr. Y.S. Rajshekar Reddy. He was nice to me and he allowed me to go to the US and to join the World Bank. So I'm grateful for that.
సో మీరు మళ్ళీ ఏపీ డెవలప్మెంట్ లో మీరు పార్టిసిపేషన్ ఉండాలని కోరుకుంటున్నాం మేము. మరి
No, that's so kind of you and so nice of you, and I really enjoyed my interaction with you. I'm happy to contribute any ideas, any way, short of, getting my company involved there or, relocating there.
పరండి ఈ డయాస్ మీద నుంచి సిబిఎన్ గారికి ఒక సజెషన్ ఇవ్వండి, లేదంటే ఒక విజన్ ఒకటి చెప్పండి బ్రీఫ్ గా.
No, my suggestion is only 3 suggestions. One is to set up something which is the equivalent of Center for Strategic Futures in Andhra Pradesh, suggestion number 1. Suggestion number 2 is to launch a program on digital twins in Andhra Pradesh. In fact, the latest issue of The Economist, this week's Economist, has a section on digital twins, by the way. And it's becoming so important in healthcare, in manufacturing, in services. Number 2. And number 3 is to ensure that Gen AI becomes foundational and is a compulsory subject of education across the board. So 3 ideas that I feel could be transformative for the state.
థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సుడాన్ గారు మా ఇంటర్వ్యూలో పార్టిసిపేట్. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్. మీరు కూడా పార్టిసిపేట్ కావాలని చెప్పి కోరుకుంటున్నాం. సో చంద్రబాబు గారితో మళ్ళీ మిమ్మల్ని చూడాలని మేము కోరుకుంటున్నాం. ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ లో భాగస్వాములు కావాలని కోరుకుంటున్నాం. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్.
Thank you so much. Take care.